Hello, 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 everybody, and welcome to tonight's episode of the ZodWriter and Apass show, or the Apass and ZodWriter show, whatever you want to call it. We're gonna change the branding and everything. I'm glad, Apass, that you're here. Thank you so much for joining me. As always, you are awesome, and everybody in the chat right now, we know why you're here. And Keo Daikin, my good friend, says, get him. He knows exactly why we're here. Ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be the most honest and, direct review of The Flash you guys will see on YouTube. Because Apass and I are not here to hold back. We're not here to lie to anybody. And we're not here to appease people's feelings. Okay, I got to tell you the truth. I'm sitting here right now, and there's something I want to pull up before we really get started. There's something that I saw online that really kind of got to me, that kind of encapsulated this whole experience in a nutshell. And let me see if I can share my screen right quick. And let's see, share screen. see if this works. Because this is something I think everybody should see. I don't know if y'all can see this, but this was something that somebody posted online. My good friend over at Latino Slant posted this online. And he said, let's run somewhere empty, and then it shows the two Ezras running to an empty movie theater. Now, apparently, some people's feelings got hurt when I posted this on Twitter today. And I think it was yesterday I posted it. And I want to just say right now, I didn't mean, to hurt anybody's feelings. I wasn't trying to belittle anybody. But the point here the point that's being made here is very, very well taken. The movie theater that I saw The Flash in, there was literally 8 people in the theater, counting me and the person I was with. So when I saw this, I was just illustrating what is really going on. And I don't know if you noticed, Apass, but there's a lot of people on social media posting pictures of empty theaters where they went to see this movie. Even Abu Nas, the president, did a video on Twitter yesterday showing how empty the theater he saw the movie. How it was. Yeah, there was literally 8 people, Showcaz. I'm not even lying to you. It was 8 people. It was an empty theater. I could have sat anywhere I wanted, and I was shocked because Friday was the official opening day for the movie. Now, Apass, you had a little bit of a different experience. So why don't you explain your experience with the theater?
Yeah, I saw it Thursday night, and my theater was pretty packed. I saw it in IMAX, and I was like, I didn't know what to expect, to be honest with you, with like the amount of like people that showed up to see it. But when I saw, like, it was literally packed, and from what I could gather, everyone seemed to be enjoying the film. So I guess it depends on the area, like wherever you're at.
That's what I'm going to say, because I know you're on the East Coast. I'm in Illinois, and so my area, it might have been for me, it might have been the time of day that I went, because I went relatively early. When you and I were texting, I was on my way to the theater at the time because you had told me that you had seen it, and you texted me and asked me if I had watched it, and I was on my way to it. So it was pretty early in the day. I wanted to see it early because I apologize to everybody. We were supposed to do this show last night, but I was on a stream with Sil Abdul, and him and I, whenever we get a chance to collaborate, we always go for a few hours. So there was no way for me to be 2 places at once. But this is why this show's happening tonight. But it was for me, it was just still bizarre being opening day, because when I went to
Yeah.
see Little Mermaid, and I'll tell you the thing, when I went to see Little Mermaid, it was a late night showing of Little Mermaid on that opening Friday when it came out. It was around, I want to say it was around 11 o'clock, 11:30 at night, pretty late showing. And it was a pretty packed theater. So maybe because of the time, but I don't know. I just had this feeling because it's a Flash movie, you'll get more parents maybe taking their kids because they love superheroes, and it's the summertime now, so I figured that the theaters would be more packed for this movie. And I mean, it's a shame because it's the kind of movie, at least in terms of content, that you can take your children to. It's a family friendly movie, at least to a certain degree, until James Gunn's notes get put into effect, and then it kind of goes off the rails a little bit. But
Yep. Mm-hmm.
But let's see. Keo Dyken says, I saw it twice, caught a few things I missed the first time. Well, that's pretty cool, Keo Dyken, because Apass and I were just speaking prior to the stream starting, and I will say this, and again, not to offend anybody, I feel like I got to have a trigger warning here before I open my mouth and get online. I just right now have no real desire to watch it again at this point in time. I don't know if other people had that sentiment. I mean, it's once you see it, I mean, I'm good. I'm glad I saw it, but as of right now, I'm good.
Yeah, I feel the same way as you. Yeah, that's how I feel. Yeah.
I gotta be honest with you. I thought that we're gonna go into our positives and negatives. We're gonna do a big breakdown of everything. We're not, gonna leave anything out. So if you have not seen the movie and you don't want to be spoiled, particularly in the way that I spoil things and the way Apass spoils things, I would suggest watching the stream later on, because we are going to just open it up, and we're going to be all over the place talking about everything, whatever we feel, however we feel like it. That's the great thing about this show. It's a very loose and open conversation. We're not trying to, I don't like to do it where it's really structured in that kind of a way, and we break it down. Well, let's talk about this character, and then we put the character's name on the screen. And no, we're just going to go into what we liked, what we didn't like. We're going to spoil things here, we're going to spoil things there. We're going to talk about what a crappy company WBD is. We're going to go into all sorts of different things. So if that's what you're into, you've come to the right place. You were looking forward to seeing this. Dark Plato says hi to Apass. And
Hello.
it is great to see. Thank you, Sin Havoc. Yes, this is see, there's a reason why Apass and I are doing streams together now. We've come to the conclusion that we have a lot of similar feelings when it comes to topics like this.
Yes, we do, for sure.
It just made sense for us to come together and talk about all these things, because honest to God, it's been ridiculous. It really has. I feel bad for everybody, particularly on that unreal place called Twitter. I mean, the things that you see in this unreal fantasy world called Twitter is just unbelievable. It's like people use it as an excuse to take leave of their senses. Common sense is not common at all, and there's absolutely no logic to anything anybody says or does. There's a particular example, Apass, of something that you posted today that I couldn't believe some of the response. I think you know what post I'm talking about. And for
I
those, if you're not
yeah.
following Apass on Twitter, you're doing yourself a disservice. You definitely need to check Apass out because she knows what she's talking about. Anytime I see anything of Apass on my timeline, I just automatically retweet it because she knows exactly what she's talking about. And I'm, it's incredible the stupidity that we deal with on a daily basis.
Yeah.
Darth Plato says kneel before Zod. Thank you, Darth Plato. Always a pleasure having you here. I'm glad you enjoy the show. Keo Daikin would like a link. Keo Daikin, I will. You know what we'll do once we get a chance to kind of get our feelings out and have pretty much talked about it. We'll bring you in to kind of help with the discussion. If you'd like to come on, that would be great. I have no problem doing that. What about you, Apass? Is that cool?
Oh yeah, that's
okay,
cool.
so that's what we'll do. We'll bring Keo Daikin on a little bit later. I think that'll be cool. That'll be a nice change of pace here. Frank C says no holds barred. Oh yeah, definitely. We're not going to hold back. And I apologize. I'm going to be honest with you guys. I was on my best behavior last night when I was on the stream with Sil, because Sil and I, we talk about a lot of things and we gel well together when we're discussing this stuff as well. And, and I was trying to be as positive as possible. So I was trying to weigh in more on the things that I liked more so than the things I didn't like. I don't think I really talked about the things I didn't like all that much, apart from the baby shower scene, which was at the very beginning. The baby shower scene was sort of, and I remember, Sil and I kept talking about how the concept art for the baby shower scene. I guess that's a good place to start. The concept art for the baby shower scene was better than the actual execution of the scene in the movie. What were your feelings on that, Apass?
I mean, I being like a part of Still Nation for the past couple of years and hearing about this scene, this infamous scene, I wasn't a fan then, and I was not a fan of it when I saw it, to be honest. So, I mean, it could have been way worse, I think, but at the same time, I was just like, this doesn't. I'm not feeling it.
I can't imagine how much worse, to be honest with you. I really can't. Like, I'm trying to picture when you said it could have been way worse. I'm sitting here with my little brain trying to figure out how it could have been much worse, because I got to tell you, those babies really look like dolls, and not even expensive dolls. We're talking the dolls where you can walk into like Five Below and you could buy like a baby doll in a box, or even at the grocery store, in the grocery store checkout. These are the kinds of babies we're talking about. They didn't even try to model the babies after actual babies. It didn't. I mean, the CGI was that bad. It was like they took a bunch of baby dolls, not even mannequins, just cheap baby dolls, and used them as the template to be falling from the sky. I don't know how anybody defends that scene, but people actually are defending that scene. So,
I mean, to each their own. Yeah, like everyone can have their have their feelings on that scene and the film itself. I gotta say this too. I mean, being on Sky's stream yesterday morning before my internet went out, I was also trying to be very, very positive about the
you were on your best behavior too.
I was, because believe me, I did enjoy the film.
Yes,
it was enjoyable, but like I said to Zod, I've said it. I texted it and I just said it to him before we started. Like the cons definitely outweighed the pros for me on this film, especially knowing what we could have had. But due to the ego of a certain individual, it didn't turn out that way. So,
and I think that's the part that a lot of the people that are, I'll just say it, a lot of people, the people that are capping for this movie right now, have completely forgotten about the fact that this movie has been meddled with on the levels of Justice League 2017. Think about it. It's gone through like 3 or 4 different regimes, over 40 writers, and then you have James Gunn's suggestions that were used because he's head of the studio now. How anybody can consider that excusable, especially if you're in the know and you know what we could have had. I don't get it. I'm trying really hard to. It's like you've got, and I love the way the way you describe it for you, where the cons outweigh the pros, and that's, and that's the simplest way you can sum it up. I mean, there's nothing you can. It's like you can't. It's like I had a friend who always used to like to say, "Well, Zod, you can't polish a turd." And it's ultimately, no matter what you do, that turd is going to always be a turd, no matter what you do to try to shine it up, make it look nice, spray it with perfume, disguise it, put cologne on it, whatever you're going to do, that's not going to change what this movie is. And this movie was a Frankenstein movie. Too many writers, too many cooks in the kitchen, not enough attention to to what the story could have been. And the part that irritates me the most is that this movie has a masterpiece in it.
It does. 100%.
You can see the skeleton of what Andy Muschietti was going for. You could see the elements that would have made this movie fantastic, and everything, all the ingredients were there. It's just the execution was off and rushed, and the studio was just just haphazardly throwing things together and not stopping and thinking about what they were doing. And listening to James Gunn is got to be literally the worst thing you could have possibly did for this movie, because Okay, I know I'm older, but here's the thing. A lot of the young audiences today that you're trying to reel in with these movies, do they even know that George Clooney played Batman? And for that matter, do they even know who George Clooney is? I'm not being funny. I'm legitimately asking, because if that ending, spoiler, Bruce Wayne is George Clooney at the end. Yeah, I said it. I spoiled it. If you didn't know by now,
was right.
Not my fault. Still was right. Yeah. Remember George Clooney. Listen, I didn't mind, because I know who George Clooney is and I got what they were going for. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily feel like that's the way you want to end a Flash movie, when you are trying to set up some type of future universe. Because if we're going by that, we have to talk about the Aquaman scene that happened afterwards, where Aquaman is horribly drunk and he's puking everywhere and falling everywhere. Was that necessary? Was that the scene that was going to unite the fandom? Why did we have to have that scene? When you could have taken the opportunity to give us something of substance that was actually going to lead into something in the future. But no, we got to make everything a joke. We got to make Jason Momoa into an even bigger joke than he already is. So now, I mean, what are you left with? There's bits and pieces of gold in this Flash movie. There's things in this Flash movie that are so emotionally resonating and are so powerful and are so good. And then you got so much crap that you got to sift through, and you got to deal with the bad editing, the horrible PS2 graphics, the outrageously horrible writing in some spots of this movie. I mean, I just don't get it. And I went into this movie wanting to love it, thinking I'm going to go into this movie just expecting to watch a comedy. I'm going to go into this movie thinking, oh, Like the way I love Back to the Future. Okay, I'm going to go into this movie and treat it like it's like Back to the Future. And I'm going to sit down and I'm going to just not take it too seriously and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to be honest with you. That helped. That helped a lot, because if I didn't go in with that mentality, I probably would have walked out.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I definitely had an open mind. I wanted to like it like you did. I think like we all did. We all wanted to like it, but it's just, and I know some of us in our community do like the film, and
A lot, yeah.
a lot of them, and that's again like it to each their own. I respect their likes, and but I have to. Well, both of us, since we're always on the same page, we also have to be honest about how we felt about it. Like all the just like there were just like things in this film that were just clunky and wonky and wacky, for that matter, just like
cringe. Yes.
cringy. Like I honestly, it's like the stream last night with you and Sil. This film was sabotaged. I think it's been like sabotage since they fired Rick Famuyiwa. So in a way, this film was always kind of destined to fail because of too many cooks in the kitchen, first off. And the studios they don't understand what they have or what they did have. They don't get it. They're literally the definition of insanity. No matter who's in charge, it's the same stupidity time and time again. Especially when it comes to DC. And I don't get it. I don't get it.
I don't get it either. I've been trying very hard to feel and it's like you can't. It's not that I'm just being a hard person and I don't want to give this movie a pass. I'm being hard on it. No, I'm being honest, and that's the difference. It's not, and I can't say that it was a bad movie. I can't say that it was a horrible movie. I can't say that it was worse than Birds of Prey or worse than Shazam 2. I don't even put it in that category. But at the same time, I can't in good conscience say, it deserves to be right up there with Zack Snyder's Justice League and BVS and Man of Steel and the first Wonder Woman from Patty Jenkins. No, it's in its own little section. Thank you, Cameron Robinson, for the 1999 super chat. Says mostly every post Snyder era movie has been a flop. Wonder Woman 84, The Suicide Squad, Birds of Prey, Batgirl was a tax write-off, Black Adam, Shazam 2, and now The Flash. But somehow we're a minority, but somehow Zack's vision is too dark.
Bingo. It's literally, this studio has been, because of for whatever reason they dislike Zack Snyder and whatever he had planned. They've been gaslighting us using freaking anything at their disposal, usually like media outlets and social media, to make us all think that we are a minority, and also that Zack's trilogy was just off the bat, it was a failure. When if you look at the freaking statistics comparing the first 4 DCEU films to the first 4 Marvel movies, DCEU crushes it.
I mean,
look for yourselves. Like,
I mean, we can look right now at where we're sitting with the Flash box office numbers. It is not looking good. The drop off has been ridiculous, and I don't even think Shazam 2 did as bad as this. It is not a good thing, and I'm desperately hoping that there will be some sort of reckoning at the top for this box office failure. Because again, I'm not saying that this movie is horrible and deserves to be like this. It actually deserves to make pretty good money. And if there wasn't so much controversy and baggage surrounding it, it probably would have did a lot better.
Oh, for sure. And if they would have kept the what was in place before Gunn took over, this would be a different conversation.
You and I both talked about this, about how if they would have there were just a few little things that they could have did that would have made the difference between masterpiece and mediocre. Honestly, it's like when you think about the ending that we could have had, you think about having Henry Cavill in a scene with Sasha Calle. You think about having, even having Michael Keaton at the end, or having Ben Affleck have some more stuff. Actually putting Ben Affleck's name in the credits of the movie.
Yeah, like what the hell?
I mean, I don't understand. I'm really just I'm bemused at this point, because no matter what, like you said, Apass, no matter who's in charge, no matter what's going on, WB is just set up to fail. They sabotage themselves. You could make I'm at the point now where it's like you could make the greatest superhero movie of all time, and if it's WB releasing it, it's going to fail.
Mm-hmm.
Because they have no direction. They are a rudderless company. They don't know what they want to do. They put buffoons like Safran and Gunn in charge of the studio when those two guys have no business being anywhere near the top of the food chain. Peter Safran, are you kidding me? Peter Safran is the reason that we got Shazam 2, but they didn't want to do a sequel to Zack Snyder's Justice League. What are we talking about? This is what I mean. And we're all just supposed to be excited because it's been like 10 years in the making for a Flash movie. Yeah. And I was excited too when Rick Fimigawa was still in charge as director. But as soon as they got Christina Hobson on board to write it, and she's the writer of Birds of Prey and all these other flops, I kind of knew that there was no way it was going to work out.
Yeah.
I mean, at some point you again, it goes back to what I said about polishing a turd. There's only so much you can do to disguise what that turd is. And I mean, I guess we can call Flash a good turd if you want it in some aspects. I don't know if there is such a thing, but it's really bad. Charles Austin says, I think this was a hit job, if I'm being honest. A calculated move to make sure the Snyderverse doesn't have a chance.
100%. 100%.
Charles, I really wish I could disagree with you here, but I can't. I feel like Gunn is doing everything he can to run the Snyderverse into the ground, and there are some people that are watching this movie with rose-colored goggles, all excited, taking it personally that the movie isn't doing well, getting mad at their friends for commenting that anything even remotely negative regarding this movie, and I don't know. I feel like being honest is the only way to be. We live in a very, very fake world right now. There's so many fake people, so many people capping for things that are not good. We had people saying that the Batman was better than the Dark Knight. We had people telling us all the time. I've actually seen some people say that the Flash is the best movie since the Dark Knight. They say that about every superhero movie that comes out now. Oh, it's better than the Dark Knight. It's genre defining. Stop lying. It's not even close. You had Michael Keaton in there being a total badass.
He was amazing.
He couldn't save this movie. I mean, are you kidding me? He had some of the greatest Batman sequences since Ben Affleck in The Warehouse.
I
I'm going to
agree.
say that right now.
I agree. Mm-hmm.
You know, and that's why I said this is going to be a mixture of spoilers, positives, and negatives. It's not going to be it's not going to be linear. We're going to be all over the place. So you guys, you know, if you can follow through, that's great. Keo Dykin says George Clooney had no business making a cameo. He hated playing Batman. He wasn't fit for the role in the 90s. And Clooney, Val Kilmer, and Keaton were the same Bruce Wayne from the same universe. Well, yeah, that's what the story was back then. But what they've tried to do now, because now they're acknowledging the multiverse, now they can legitimately separate them, because they can say, well, it's a multiverse, so they're definitely different continuities. But I know what you're saying. I know what you're saying. But I'm going to be honest too, Keo Dykin. I never considered Batman Forever and Batman and Robin to be part of the original Tim Burton continuity. Those were Batman and Batman Returns. The tone and the direction, everything about the movies were so different that you can't see it. That's like saying that Batman and Robin takes place in the same continuity as Christopher Nolan's Batman Begins. It's just so off in terms of continuity and in terms of things that actually happen, that you can't even do that. And even like I said, even when I first saw those movies, I never took them as being related. It's almost like James Bond. When you get a new James Bond and he takes over, you can assume that some of the events that happened with previous Bonds probably happened with this Bond as well, but it's not the same, not really the same character, because the stories are different and not everything is going to match up. So,
right. Mm-hmm.
So I don't really. Someone clearly embezzled the budget. Zack Snyder's Justice League with less money had better effects. Rebel Moon trailer, the effects are polished, yet a $300 million movie with special effects looks unfinished and cartoony.
Make it make sense.
I got to ask you, Apass, do you believe the things that are being said about the special effects being a creative and artistic choice? Do you believe that? Because me personally, I think that's just a nice way of saying we didn't have time to finish the visual effects. We were rushed, so you got what you got.
When I first read the quote about from, I think it was either Andy Muschietti or it was actually somebody that was working on the VFX team. And they said that was a creative choice. I was like, okay, all right. That certainly wouldn't have been my creative choice. But then I started to think about it, and I was like, this all spells sabotage to me. It really does. I don't even care if they ran out of time or resources. It's honestly inexcusable for that film to have such shitty special effects. It 300 plus million, and that's what you come up with. I'm telling you, it's sabotage. That's all it is. It's literally sabotage.
It reminded me of when Justice League 2017, the theatrical cut came out, and Henry Cavill, when you first see Henry Cavill's face, and his face is all messed up, and you're saying to yourself, how did they approve that? How was that even allowed to be printed? If it were me at the studio, I'll tell you what would have happened right there. I would have been like, we're reshooting all of Cavill's scenes, and if we've got to delay the movie, we're going to delay the movie. That is completely unacceptable. That's unfair to the actor. That's unfair to the people working on the movie, and it's unfair to the people that are going to be watching the movie. It's an eyesore. How do you tout that out as being acceptable. I mean, you talk about mediocrity. It's like Warner Brothers is just oozes mediocrity. I mean, there's nothing legitimate that comes out of this studio. They're all just, everything is about, we got to make a quick buck. That's why nothing ever works out. That's why it all fails, because it shouldn't be about that. It should be about putting out quality entertainment where the story is paramount and everything else comes afterwards. What are they?
Yeah.
How do you? And while we're on the subject of Henry Cavill's face, okay, I want to just point out there's a sequence in the movie when Barry first enters that, whatever they call that Coliseum Chrono Bowl. Yeah. It sounds like a cooking mechanism. The Chrono Bowl. And when you see Henry Cavill, it's a really, really bad PlayStation 2 CGI version of Cavill from Zack Snyder's Justice League with his shirt off, and he's punching like the Flash is seeing. I guess the Flash is seeing images of when he fought Superman in front of the memorial, and you see him coming. I couldn't believe they did Cavill dirty like that again, especially when they actually shot scenes with the man. They shot scenes with the guy. So why would you use? Oh my God.
It enrages me. It really does. When I saw that, I was like, you've got to be effing kidding me. Like, what? What are we doing here? And again, it goes like all because of one guy's ego and a studio that's dead set to sabotage itself at every which way it possibly can. Like, and it is going back to like Warner Brothers, like constantly doing that. It's like that studio used to be the standard for films. Within the last, I don't know, was it a decade, honestly, since the previous two regimes, it's a joke. It's a total joke. It's like, are we even talking about the same studio that put out classics? It's sad.
I'm forced to wonder and question any of Warner Brothers' legitimacy at this point. I'm at the point where because I can go back to when the studio meddled with Richard Donner when he was trying to do Superman and Superman 2 back to back. They meddled with him, fired him in the middle of making Superman 2, and replaced him with that other director, Richard Lester, who came on and made, what did he do? He made Superman 2 less serious and more campy. Richard Donner wanted to do a more serious take on the material. I'm noticing a pattern with the way WB panics whenever somebody wants to do a serious take on the material, no matter what it is. If it's a serious take, they're scrambling and worried about what a few people on social media are going to think. Because make no mistake, it was the vocal minority that sunk the Snyderverse. It's the vocal minority that continues to kill this company and continues to exploit the mediocrity. And now the only thing WB is in it for is money. That's all they want. They don't care about the fans. They don't care about the talent. They don't care about who they screw over. It's about what's the fastest track to a quick buck. And I got news. If they actually thought and expected to make $1 billion off of this Flash movie, I don't know what they were smoking, but it's got to be some pretty good stuff, because they didn't have a chance in hell. You are talking about a movie that should have, by all rights, as good as it is and as bad as it is, it should have been dumped directly to that Max platform that they have now.
Yeah.
You don't put this unfinished movie in theaters, because I don't buy for a second that it was a creative decision. Give me a break. That was a creative decision. Oh, I wanted it to look bad because I wanted to show that in the Speed Force things are not the way we see them. No, that's just bad CGI. I used to see that kind of CGI because I played with the PlayStation 2. I know what those graphics are. You're not fooling me. You're not going to con me into believing that the Flash goes into PlayStation 2 world when he enters the Speed Force. That's not what I want to see, because Zack Snyder showed us the Speed Force in Zack Snyder's Justice League. And and Zack Snyder had less time to finish up the VFX than you did. And what happened? We got a very competent and very good movie out of Zack Snyder, and we got some really good special effects, all things considered.
Mm-hmm.
There's no excuse.
Yeah. No, there isn't. And if you wanted to like make it like what they were claiming with that creative choice to make it seem like everything looks off and different, they could have done that in a much more like sleek and cool way instead of what you're saying, the PS2 like graphics. Like it just like
not even PS3 graphics, PS2 graphics.
Yeah,
I mean,
it's not even PS3.
Those weren't even Unreal Engine graphics. I don't know what they were using. I mean, they were using Microsoft Paint, and they were playing around with Windows 95, and they somehow animated I don't know what they did, but these graphics were terrible. Nightmare Robin, what's up, man? With the $10 super chat, the Flash was definitely canon to Zack Snyder's Justice League, but it was nowhere near Last Jedi level bad. Well, we're going to talk about that, and I thank you for the super chat, and I thank you for your comment. And I guess you and I, let's be while we're talking like this, let's just be clear right now. It wasn't bad to the point where I hated watching it, and it's a movie I'll never watch it again. Make no mistake, there's good in this movie. Like I said earlier at the top of the show, there's a masterpiece in this movie. It's just not edited that way. We haven't seen that yet. And this is one of the things where I go into it, where I say, now I want to see Andy Muschietti's 4-hour cut of this movie.
Me too.
Because there's some stuff in there probably that will redeem this movie. This is another example of the studio coming in and meddling. James Gunn coming in and making notes and sticking his nose in where it doesn't belong. You know, take your KFC bucket of chicken, you know, like for the masses ideas, and just go sit down somewhere. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 wasn't even that good. It was better than Guardians 2, but that's not saying much. So you should have no input whatsoever on a movie that was done before you, allegedly done before you got there.
Yeah, literally, I feel like if the movie was like picture locked by the time he came in, he should have never given any notes. Like that was before your tenure. Like you have no say over a freaking production that took place before you even came in. Like, I mean, maybe it's like maybe I'm wrong with that, but like that's how I personally like see it as, you know. Just
you know what, Apass, I think I agree with you 100%. You are not wrong. You're being honest. I'm being honest, and this is what we don't get from YouTube. This is what we don't get from social media. There's a lot of dishonest people that do this for every movie. They cap for every movie like it's the next big thing, like it's the best thing. They're bandwagoners. They jump on and they leech onto it, and they want to talk about it and talk about how great it is. And then when the next movie comes out, they completely forget about it and never mention it again. And that's exactly what's going to happen here. And honestly, with the way this movie is bombing right now, these people aren't even going to see it. So who are all these people reviewing this movie? These people are not going to see this movie. How many free screenings did WB give out?
That's another thing. There was so many free fan screenings for this film.
I got sent one. Full disclosure, I got sent a free screening from this company. I could have seen this movie for free. I turned it down. I paid with my own money and went Friday when it opened. Full disclosure, because you know what? I didn't want to see a free screening. I didn't want to see an unfinished cut of the movie. I didn't care. I wanted to go in with eyes open and to see it, as the director intends, or at this point, maybe what James Gunn intended. I don't know, because it seems like James Gunn makes all the decisions. I mean, how the hell could they have been okay with that Aquaman? I'm still on the Aquaman scene. How do you? I'm not even, like I said, I'm not even mad about Clooney. I like Clooney. I understand why it was in there. I thought that was funny. Okay, fine. You want to have Clooney at the end? It was
funny.
That's fine. I don't have a problem with Clooney. I'm not. So don't come at me and say that I got a problem with Clooney. I still love Batman and Robin for all the campiness and funny. It's so goofy and ridiculous. It's one of the funniest movies to sit there and watch because it's just so goofy and all over the place. It's a masterpiece for all these other reasons. But Rel McMillan for $9.99. Thank you, Rel. Says, if Superman Legacy bombs, I guarantee you the narrative will be, why did WB hire Gunn after his movie failed at the box office, as if the fandom didn't bring that up after he was hired. 100%. And it is bombing, Rel. It bombed in one day. It's the fastest bombing movie I've ever seen. Me and Sil couldn't believe it. We were just like, this thing is bombing. How do you bomb your first day out? Like that even Shazam didn't do that. Shazam 2, as bad as that movie is. I feel bad for everybody involved, cast and crew involved with making The Flash, because they do not deserve, by no means do they deserve for this movie to be just like utter trash and not make any money. This movie is not Tromeo and Juliet. This movie is the Flash, and it should make some decent money. It's not bad like that. And Batman's thoughts, Batman, I love you, man. And I'm not, again, I know you love the movie. I'm not, and again, I know it sounds like me and Apass are being harsh on this movie, but we're not. We're just being honest. This is, and I'm like I said, with all the stuff that we've said so far, and we're not done, but with all the stuff that we've said so far about the movie, neither one of us hated the movie. And neither one of us are looking at the movie like it's the worst movie we've ever seen, because there's some things in it that we'll get to that we both really, really love. But I'm not going to sit here and take that. And that's why I agree with Apass the most, where it's like there's more cons than pros. Because if there was more pros than cons, you could give the movie an 8 out of 10 and be happy and say like, okay, whatever. I can't give this movie an 8 out of 10.
Not in good conscience. If you're genuinely, that's like, like, would people rather us be lying about how we're feeling about this movie? Like, it's not Justice League. We're not saying it's that bad. It's way better than Justice League. But it's just, both Zod and I were saying this, like, it could have been better. We see the potential of what this film could have been. And I'm sorry, it didn't live up to that standard. It didn't.
No. And Batdan says, we may disagree, ZodWriter, but I rock with you all the way. Listen, I'm glad that you love the movie as much as you did, Batdan. You and Josh did a great stream earlier today where you talked about your feelings, and I understand why you liked it and the things that you liked about it. But for me, I just, like I said, it's all about perspective. It's all subjective when it comes to film. This is where I kind of take a step back and I say to myself, okay, if I'm having a talk with my friends about a film, and I disagree with my friend about that film, am I going to leave the chat because because we had a disagreement about the movie? Am I going to unfriend you because, oh, you liked the movie and the parts that you liked, I didn't really like. So because we disagree about something as ridiculous as a superhero movie, are you going to stop being your friend because of that? That is the mentality of some people. And I have a bigger problem with that than anything else. I don't care what your feelings are about the movie. I'm glad you liked it more than I did. I'm glad you enjoyed it more than me, because we haven't really even gotten into all the things that we loved. But it's like I said, you know, for us, there was more negative than positive. So we're just trying to go all over the place and trying to cover everything. But I'm not. But at the end of this, I think you're gonna see. I think people are gonna see and realize, you know, that I think you're kind of wrong if you're condemning people for feeling differently about something than you do, because you don't know the whole story and you don't know why they feel the way they do, and it's fine. And like I said, if you love the movie, nobody can take that away from you. Not me, not Apass, not anyone. It's your opinion. And that's all that should really matter to you. And so I've never been able to understand the tribalism and the reason why people will literally hate each other over the opinion of a movie. I've never. It's so.
I don't get that
it's
either.
so sad to me. Like it really goes to show how all the, you know, social distancing that we had to do during the pandemic did more psychological damage to people than we thought, because people have no ability whatsoever to discern the difference between a difference of opinion and a disagreement in a friendship. There's those are two very, very different things. And I'm, you know, and it saddens me to see it, but I see it, and I'm not happy about it at all. It's frustrating beyond belief that this is where things have gone, and the way that we have to approach things now. Like I was saying on a thread earlier today, it's like I feel like I got to walk on eggshells when I'm online talking about this movie, because there's so much heat on one side and so much heat on the other. Apass, I've discerned that it's two camps. It's either you really, really love this movie and you're capping for this movie and you want this movie to be a success no matter what, and you overlook the flaws and you love it. Damn everybody to hell who has any issues with it whatsoever. That's one camp. And then the other camp is just somebody that just straight up hates it because they hate everything that WB does. They hate everything. They're not going to support it. They don't support nothing anyway. They pirate all their movies, and they just like to attack people, and they don't care about nothing. Those are the two camps when it comes to the Flash. And then there's people like you and me that are, you know, we like some stuff and we disliked more stuff. So we're we're around, but we're around people that are in one camp or the other, dipping their toe in one camp or the other, and you got to be careful what you say. Well, I'm here to say, forget that. That's exactly why we're doing this stream, because I don't want there to be any confusion about how I feel. I don't care if you loved it, thought it was the greatest movie in the world. If you think it's better than The Dark Knight, more power to you.
Yeah, I agree.
Let's see. Ray says, agreed. F the Batman hate. Hate those tools who hate on Zach and say the garbage was the best DC movie ever. Yeah, there's a lot of that going around.
Twitter is a cesspool.
Yeah. It's like you said, Twitter is not a real place. I mean, we did have, and I want everybody to know we're talking about this Flash movie, but we do have a lot of kind of some other topics too that we're going to get to a little later that made us both feel a little better, and we're gonna get into that as well. Let's see. The Flash movie was delayed for years. Yeah, it definitely was. Another thing that gets under my skin is how Gunn's characters aren't comic book accurate, but he's seen as the comic book movie god. It makes no sense. Yeah.
it's literally it's asinine to me. It really is. It's like I've met people in real life, and I've even I think mentioned some of them are family members of mine that think that James Gunn is that, and I'm sorry, he isn't. He's nowhere near it. Nowhere near it. Like he's just a hack. He really is.
Shout out to my good friend PD7, who does some of the greatest walk and talk videos you'll ever see on YouTube. This guy is awesome. Thanks for being here, man. Batdan Sot says, I agree with you mostly, ZodWriter. Only reason I don't say completely because I unmatched 2 girls on dating apps for not liking Man of Steel and BVS.
No, I can understand that though. I can
see, this is what I'm talking about. People don't understand. It's like I love Apass for a reason. You understand? Apass is not afraid to say how she feels about stuff, and is not afraid to tell you right there. I can understand that, Batman. That's awesome.
I literally, there's been so many like interactions I've had with people that as soon as they talk crap about any of the Zack Snyder DC movies, I'm like, sayonara.
That's the biggest turn off. It's like it's over.
Like, bye. It's like, yeah, like cue in sync. Bye. But anyway.
And Showcast here says, I don't care about Zod. I was more of a fan of Fiora, and she was barely used. Oh my God. Can we get it? Well, thank you, Showcast, because we're gonna get into that a little bit now too. I'm with you.
Yeah.
I think Fiora didn't even really need to be there. I mean, I applaud Muschietti for his attention to detail, because he was trying to basically recreate the atmosphere and the aesthetics of Man of Steel, and having Fiora there by Zod Sai kind of added to that aesthetic, but that was all it was. It was like she was furniture in the sense that she really was not given anything really to do. There should have been a scene in there with her going toe to toe with Sasha Calle's Supergirl. There should have been a fight, a badass fight between 2 Kryptonian females who just have different ideologies. That fight should have been one of the highlights of this movie.
Yep.
And that is something that we did not get, but who knows? Maybe it's in Muschietti's 4-hour cut that we'll eventually see down the line, because you know what's going to happen? Muschietti's going to get tired of the studios and their BS, and then he's going to come out like David Ayer and say that his 4-hour cut is superior to what we saw.
Yeah,
that day is going to come. It's going to come.
I believe that. I definitely believe that. It's just history repeating itself once again. But also, yeah, like I think she's probably in it a hell of a lot more in the 4-hour cut than what we saw in theaters.
Yeah, and General Zod too. I mean, I love Michael Shannon, because I feel like Michael Shannon is like you and me, Apass.
He tells it like
he does not hold back. He tells it like it is. You know, I disagreed with him when he said that when he watched Man of Steel, BVS, he was bored and fell asleep. I disagreed with him, but you know what? I respected him for having the balls to say it. You know what I mean? And for being truthful. So when he comes out and he says full well that he didn't feel like Zod coming back was necessarily the best of ideas, you got to give him props for that, and you got to give him props for having the thought and having the compassion for Zack Snyder, his friend, and saying, I'm not going to do this movie unless I get my blessing from Zack.
Yep.
That, I mean, I will forever just love him as an actor, just for his honesty, because you don't really see that very often. A lot of people will sugarcoat things, and they'll act like, everything is great, but in the background, if you know what's going on, you don't really, that's not really the case. And I loved a lot of the stuff that a lot of the comparisons that Michael Shannon made, but between Man of Steel and The Flash, where he straight up compared them, and he said, Man of Steel is culturally relevant. He called Man of Steel a culturally relevant film. You can look it up. You can go. There's a interview with him online that just came out. It's a video where he's actually talking about Man of Steel being culturally relevant and what it actually means and what it boils down to. And he goes all into the weeds about the importance, the significance of Man of Steel, even to this day, and how it holds up. And he compares it to The Flash, where, Zod is just coming in and kind of going through the motions and doing what he always does. He just wants to terraform the Earth to make a new Krypton, but there's no depth there because it's just. But he also acknowledges that it's not his story; it's Flash's story. So he's just a supporting character there, and it just really I love it. I just love that honesty because you don't get that from actors. You get a lot of that from Ben Affleck too. Ben Affleck does speak a lot of honesty as well, which is another true thing that we can look at there, and we can't expect anything less from our Batman, right?
Right.
Okay, Israel says he gives it an 8.5 out of 10. I'm glad you enjoyed it that much, and I wish I could have given it that high of a rating because I really wanted to. I was really hoping for this. This was what I was hoping. I was hoping to be as on board and excited as some of you that have given it those high ratings. It's sad. Nightwing says that's why I don't use Twitter. You are a wise man.
Yes.
because Twitter will ruin you with the negativity, but Apass and I, we just joke about it. We don't even we don't take it seriously. We just joke about it.
I mean, it's hilarious. It honestly is hilarious seeing a lot of these people and bots just talking crap about just stupid shit. I don't know.
Yeah, are the majority of them even real people? That's debatable at this point.
Right? Yeah.
You gotta wonder with AI. We don't know. Rel McMillan says, I don't even like talking comic book movies because I won't bite my tongue and will destroy them with facts. I don't care if you're family or a good friend. Rel, you're another one. You've always been one of the real ones, and I will always appreciate you for that as well. See, because Rel and I will talk behind the scenes too a lot, and we will, say what we really feel. And it truly is one of those situations where you just gotta be honest. And what's the problem? We're not talking about real life. We're talking about movies. If you gotta be dishonest about movies, you got a bigger problem. I mean, what's the issue? I mean, either you liked it or you didn't, or you loved it or you hated it, or you're in somewhere in the middle. There's no reason to lie. There's no reason to be dishonest. Your feelings are your feelings, and they're not going to change just because you hang out with certain people who feel a certain way. It just is what it is. I mean, it's God. I assume here I assume if you're talking about James Gunn's wife. I'm surprised his wife isn't in the Flash post credits.
Oh,
you know what? I was actually surprised too, to tell you the truth. I thought he was going to do something with her.
But that also shows that this was sabotage. He wouldn't put his wife in something that was sabotaged. You know what I mean?
I think his wife was in Shazam 2. Oh, but he wasn't trying to sabotage Shazam 2 because Shazam 2 was his buddy Saffron's movie. Yeah, you're 100% right. His wife is straight up in that movie.
Oh yeah. Yeah, she is.
Oh my God, you are 100% again. That's so sad. That is so sad. We are just, and I realize that, people are gonna clip this and take some of the stuff that we say out of context. I expect that, but the thing is like I said, I'm not even a hater. I'm not saying this because I hated The Flash. I'm not even being like that because, again, there's some things about the movie I appreciated and liked very much. So I'm not going to, I can't say that I hated this movie. But hey, Bat Dance Thought says, when you watch an animated series in a particular episode, the character doesn't talk because they couldn't pay for the voice actor. That's what Fiora was.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't think she had any lines.
I don't remember her talking at all.
And I'm surprised by that. Why you'd have her in there, but again, we got to remember there's a 4-hour cut out there that we know, and we know for a fact because Sasha Calle talked in an interview about how a lot of her scenes and her fight scenes were so brutal that if they kept those fight scenes in the movie, it would have received an R rating. Well, that tells you everything you need to know. That's probably the version of the movie they should have released.
Yep. Again, history repeating itself.
Because let's talk about Sasha Calle.
Yes.
Did you like her performance?
I personally, I thought she, with what she was given, with what we were shown, I think she nailed it. I would like to see more of her. I would. I could totally see her and Cavill interacting. And like 100%. Like I just, again, another performer being undermined by the studio.
And James Gunn, because he has no plans to use her in the future.
Yeah.
That's what it is. They minimized Sasha Calle. They took away a lot of the stuff we were supposed to get. When you hear how enthusiastic she is talking about the scenes that were cut from the movie, you realize just how much of this character was probably cut, like literally shredded, like Justice League 2017. We're talking about, we're talking about Justice League in the Air, David Ayer and Suicide Squad all over again with Andy Muschietti. It's a curse. It's a curse. When you hear the actress pointing out specific scenes, I don't, and I thought she was good too. I liked her. I just felt, again, like you, she was very underutilized, and that was to the detriment of the movie. They should have given us more of her, given us more of her story, given us a little more, put a little more importance on her. Because for the limited amount of time she was in the movie, she did good. But they also did quite a few stupid things with her that I didn't appreciate either. Like there was a scene in the movie where, Kryptonians are literally cutting people down, killing people, and Sasha Calle's Supergirl is just off to the side, not moving, not doing anything, just watching what's going on. And then the next time you see her, she's back with Barry, Barry and Barry. I didn't get it. And I was thinking, well, you know what? There's probably some scenes that we haven't seen that if they were there, it would put it all into context and it would make it make sense. But unfortunately, again, because this is WB we're talking about, they're the masters at butchering movies, and then they blame it on the filmmaker when the movie underperforms. So Andy Muschietti, I think I think if anything, they'll probably try to shift the blame onto him in some way for this horrible performance. They'll blame Snyder fans. They'll blame Andy Muschietti. They'll blame everybody, but James Gunn and David Zaslav in the studio. They won't blame any of the other people who are actually responsible for this mess.
Right.
And I don't think Andy Muschietti deserves this. I think Andy Muschietti went into the movie with heart to make a good film. That's why I keep saying there's a masterpiece in here somewhere. We're just not getting it because the studio's doing what they always got to do. A good death is its own reward. Yeah, straight from Man of Steel, Darth Plato. I mean, I would have liked to have seen that scene from a different perspective. Maybe they could have thrown even more of Man of Steel in there a little bit and given us a little more from Fiora's perspective a little
Well,
bit.
maybe that's in the 4-hour cut.
You never
know?
know.
You never
know. Because
Mhm.
Muschietti was asked about the 4-hour cut, and he said that there is, but he prefers the movie as it was released. And I believe he's saying this because, again, it's PR, and he's he's doing exactly what David Ayer did, where he's playing the company man and he's doing the job he has to do to be able to get more work. And he's just playing nice. But you watch down the line, after he gets enough crap for the movie and the studio, messes him over a few more times, he'll come out and admit that his 4-hour cut is the one he wanted us to see. We can see it. You don't even need to be. You don't need to be a scooper. You don't need to have any knowledge of anything. You just need to follow the patterns of what this studio does and how this studio treats people, treats their talent, and you already know what's happening. Especially because we know that this 4-hour cut exists. That's the first mistake, letting us know that that a director's cut.
Zod, this is reminiscent of BVS announcing that they'll release the Ultimate Edition. You know what I mean? Like, was it before it came out?
It was before. It was before BVS was in theaters, because I remember before BVS, about I want to say like the weekend before BVS came out, I have a Vudu account, the digital movies account, and they had BVS up for pre-order, and included in the pre-order was the Ultimate Edition of BVS, and I pre-ordered it, and this was before I even saw the movie, because I knew that the Ultimate Edition was going to be the version that we were going to want to see. That's bad marketing 101. You want to get people into the theaters to see your movie, but you're marketing already before the movie even comes out that there's a superior version that you're going to get to see before people even go to see the movie. And then almost every complaint that these people had with BVS was nullified when they saw the Ultimate Edition. So what are we telling? What is that telling us? It's telling us that the studio is crap, and that they should just let the filmmakers make their movies.
Yeah. And if you're gonna let like certain filmmakers make their vision, you should make that go for everybody that you employ to make your studio a profit. Like,
well, I'm thinking that WB might actually release Muschietti's director's cut when it comes on video, because they're going to want to make as much money out of this as they can, especially because it's flopping as badly as it did. So I think there's a good chance we will see the director's cut.
Yeah, I hope they do that. I think that, considering how abysmal the box office is right now.
They gotta make their money back somehow. Ralph McMillan says most people will just regurgitate what they hear online. DC movies don't follow the comics like MCU, which isn't true at all. Yeah, you know what? The MCU doesn't follow the comics either.
No.
Okay. I was reading Spider-Man since I was a kid, and the Spider-Man movies that we get do not follow the comics. That's just one example. Iron Man either. What are we talking about here? Nightwing totally agrees. Keo Daikin says if the 4-hour cut comes out, it's going to show who the folks are who loved this mess. Yeah, it is. Because once that 4-hour cut comes out, and all of our complaints with the movie are gone. Could you imagine, Apass? The CGI is better. We get Henry Cavill in the movie. We've actually got that scene where Ben Affleck is lost in time. We actually get, stuff that we wanted to see, that we've heard about for months and months and months leading up to this. I don't get it, but here's the part that makes it even worse. What makes it even worse is they're rebooting. They've announced they're rebooting. They've made a big production out of the fact that they're rebooting. They're not hiding the fact that they're rebooting. So why not? So why censor Andy Muschietti? Just throw everything in the kitchen sink in with this movie. Give us everything. It doesn't matter. You could have had Henry Cavill. You could have had all of Henry Cavill's scenes. Could have showed us the ending scene with Cavill and Sasha Calle and all that, because we know it's not going anywhere. We're not expecting it to go anywhere because you already said you're rebooting. So why all of a sudden now are you concerned with confusing your audience? You don't think the audience is confused as it is? You weren't. James Gunn wasn't concerned about confusing the audience when he put out that god awful The Suicide Squad movie after Zack Snyder's Justice League came out. They weren't worried about confusing the audience then. And that god awful Shazam 2 and all these stupid going nowhere movies that have no business even being out, but they're concerned about confusing the audience now over The Flash. Such a double standard. It's ridiculous.
It's asinine.
Oh my God. Yeah. Oh, well, we're not going anywhere. Okay, so you end the movie on a joke. You end the movie on, you give us Clooney. So I'm assuming that Ezra Miller is in the Clooneyverse, which is whatever. But then you show us that stupid Aquaman scene instead of leading into something. Apass, I got to ask you, do you think that this would have made more sense? Because I'm struggling with this. I think as much as I enjoyed the Clooney cameo and thought it was cool, if Clooney wasn't in there and they just left it the way it was at the CinemaCon showings where Batman gets out or Bruce Wayne gets out of the car, it would have been the same with Barry and all that, but we don't see who Batman is. They just left it ambiguous. He gets out of the car and you don't see who he is, and it ends that way. I kind of think that would have been a little bit better.
Yeah.
Because at least then you can assume that that's probably the Batman that Gunn is going to use in his DCU moving forward. If you want continuity and you want the movie to tie in. But if you're ending the movie on a joke, it's completely fine to leave it with Clooney. But I think I think that was kind of a missed opportunity to kind of tie it in with whatever you're doing. But maybe it was, again, we don't know what Gunn.
I don't want to even begin to understand what goes on in that man's mind.
Yeah, there's no. Ironically, Grace Randolph is not calling out James Gunn. I don't expect that. I don't expect anything from Grace Randolph. Zod and Fiora roles were a letdown. I was expecting a big fight scene.
Same.
There were screenshots of a big fight scene, Mr. J, that we never got. You see, that's why I'm saying that 4-hour Muschietti director's cut is probably gonna solve a lot of problems, because we're a lot of narrative story problems. Oh my God. Oh my God. She was more disturbing than Zod. Zod sees the end of the earth as a means to an end. Fiora sees it as getting rid of parasites and getting pleasure out of it. Her character was missed in the Flash. Yeah, they kind of, and this is a thing, Showcast, the Muschietti cut probably, gives us the sadistic side of Fiora that we saw on display in Man of Steel, and I'm telling you, I'm getting hyped for this cut we may never see, because I'm sitting here thinking, man, Sasha Calle is talking about R-rated scenes. We're thinking about Fiora. We're talking about all this stuff. Maybe they actually gave Michael Shannon something to do. I'm just sitting here like, what is going on? Like you don't, but yeah, hope maybe there's less PS2 graphics or more PS2 graphics. I don't know.
I would hope so.
Real ones always say it as it is. No baloney. Yeah, that's what it is. That's why, like I said, People don't like me because I speak what's on my mind. I tell the truth. That's one thing people can't say about me. They can call me all kinds of names. They can come at me, but they can't say that I don't speak the truth, because I do. I speak the truth as I see it. I speak my truth. And if that's, and that's why, like I say, I'm not trying to make friends. I keep like-minded people around me. I don't mind disagreeing with people, because if you're really my friend, you're not gonna not be my friend because you disagree with me about a Flash movie. It's just the way it is. Let's see. The Flash and Justice League are roommates. Oh wow. I like I said, I don't know. I don't know if I would put it on the same level as Justice League 2017. I think in terms of the meddling that went on, you're probably right, TJ. I think the meddling is equal or worse to, well, maybe the Ayer cut might even be a better comparison, because Muschietti and Ayer are kind of similar in the way that they're approaching and dealing with the studio with regards to all of this.
Yeah.
Because as you know, we still don't have the Ayer cut. So I don't think, if things stay the way they are, I don't think we're going to get the Ayer cut. But we might end up, well, as a matter of fact, I think before the end of the year, we're going to get the Schumacher cut of Batman Forever. I think we're going to
we'll get that before the Ayer cut.
Oh, absolutely, before the Ayer cut. Joel Schumacher only had to die for us to get his cut of Batman Forever. So I don't know what that says about David Ayer, but I don't think David Ayer's getting anything.
Oh my God, the studio!
Oh God, they are the
worst.
Makes
my brain hurt.
We could, any one of us, Apass, could fix that studio right now. We could walk in there tomorrow and be like, you know what? This is all you have to do. Because as lifelong DC fans, we know. We could go in there and be like, no, this is what you do. First of all, no Creature Commandos. Cancel that right now. Gone. Superman Legacy, gone. We're fast tracking. Get Henry Cavill on the phone. You know what? We're bringing back Henry Cavill right now. We're putting Man of Steel 2 into production. We're fast tracking it, and we're giving it to Andy Muschietti as an olive branch for all the crap he had to deal with this Flash movie, because they meddled with his story. They messed with what he was doing. So we'll give him Man of Steel 2. And then on top of that, we're bringing Zach back. We're going to let him finish his movies, and we'll see what happens after that. That's a good start, and we could just get that rolling all in one day.
Yep,
that'd be the first thing that we
problem
would do.
Solved.
Right. Yep. Enough is enough. This is just ridiculous, and I don't know what WBD is waiting for. I don't know how low they want their stock to go. I don't know what they're thinking. I just wonder what the fallout is going to be within that company over this movie, because they were projecting this movie to be huge.
Yes, they were. Yeah, oh my God.
But again, like you said, sabotage.
It is sabotage. The next earnings call, I want to listen in on that.
And they deliberately did that Justice League lasso joke in the Flash film, making Batfleck look like a fool and ruining Wonder Woman's cameo. F you, Gunn. I see what you did. I didn't have as much of an issue with it as I thought I was going to have, mainly because Ben Affleck himself came out and brought that scene up and talked about it at length when he was on that podcast. And he really had passion about it when he was talking about it. I mean, he really and I kind of get that maybe it was, I mean, I could see how you could make comparisons, showcase to what happened in the theatrical Justice League. I could see that, but I don't know. I felt a little different about it. I guess I wasn't as bothered by it as I would have been had I not known. But then what nullified it for me and what puts me on your side, Showcast, is the fact that they didn't give Ben Affleck any credit for being in the movie. Mm-hmm. You know, I could forgive this scene, but they didn't credit the man. And the rumor is that he's going to sue the studio now.
As he should.
I think honestly, at this point, I think WBD is due a class action lawsuit from the fans at this point. Because they've lied so much. They've lied about everything. They're dishonest to a fault. They came out and said that the post-credit scenes for The Flash were some of the most important scenes you're going to want to see. They lie about everything. They're dishonest. They're completely, oh my God.
Liars.
Liars on it's just, oh my God. Yes. Keo Dyken. James Gunn is Thawne. Definitely. He is a saboteur at its finest.
Mm-hmm.
And
that's probably what he's the most, like, that's his greatest talent. Sabotage. And failing upwards.
He's definitely failing upwards. He definitely is. All WBD does is lie, and I'd go on a firing spree in that lot, except for DeLuca and Abdi. Well, you know, he never should have messed with DeLuca and Abdi. That's the thing. I don't understand why Zaslav didn't just leave DeLuca and Abdi in place. I mean,
it doesn't make sense.
I mean, they only wanted to finish things out with some dignity. And then Zaslav could have turned around and brought James Gunn in. I mean, I don't even really. So I guess we can kind of get into some things now about the Flash. We can kind of get into some things that we liked. Try to. I liked Michael Keaton.
Oh, he was so
He was good. It was great to see him back. He's probably the only one that they didn't cut all that much of his stuff out. They probably left him pretty much intact and cut everybody else.
That's what it seems like.
Since they used him to market the movie so heavily. But I thought he was wonderful. I loved seeing him in the movie. I really loved Batfleck, of course.
Oh yeah.
More so his scene as Bruce Wayne when he was talking to Barry.
With Barry. Oh yes.
More so that scene than the actual scene as him with Batman and whatever ridiculous CGI stuff they did to the suit he was wearing. I don't know, but
it looked a little wonky.
It looked very wacky, very wacky. But I was satisfied with the conversation that he had with Barry. I thought that was very well done. I was actually surprised that WBD and James Gunn allowed that conversation to take place, because that conversation directly references events that specifically happened and only happened in Zack Snyder's Justice League. There is no doubt about it, and this is the number one thing that was positive to come out of the Flash movie. Zack Snyder's Justice League is canon. It happened.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
This movie was Andy Muschietti being as faithful as possible, working within the confines of the stupidity of WBD to make this movie as faithful to the Snyderverse as possible. So for that, I got to give him all the credit in the world. And that is a high priority positive as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, 100%. Yeah.
I
doesn't erase anything, and it's canon. Yeah.
That's right. So for that, for that you'll get no complaints.
Yeah.
On that front, we can we're not, it's good. That's why I'm
Hmm.
saying you can find things like that in this movie that are awesome, and you can be happy about it, which is why we can't walk away from this movie saying we hated this movie in spite of all the negatives.
Hmm.
Uh,
Yep.
Ezra, the scenes with Ezra and his mother.
Oh my
I
god,
thought all the
those
scenes with him and his mom were great.
yes. He was so good. Like he's such a great actor. He really is. Oh my god. Yeah.
Al Necron says, "When the 4 hour cut make us fakes love the movie more?" Well, no, because if you love the movie, you're not. I don't think anybody is fake for loving the movie. If you love the movie, you love the movie. That's. There's nothing wrong with loving the movie. I don't.
Hmm.
That's. I'm kind of get thrown off by what you're asking, Necron. I don't think I said this before. I don't think anybody's fake for loving the movie. If you love the movie, the person I went to see the movie with loved the movie, thought the
Hmm.
movie was great, entertaining, enjoyed it more than I did. But that I don't understand. It's not. It's all subjective.
Yeah.
I think
Hmm.
the 4 hour cut is going to make the people who love the movie probably love the movie more, because it's going to give you more of what you loved. And for those of us that were critical of the movie, it's going to make us love it because it's going to alleviate some of the issues that we had with the
Hmm.
movie.
Yeah.
So that's what I think. It's like all the issues that people had with BVS. I'll use that example again. People had issues with the BVS theatrical cut, right? But as soon as they saw the ultimate cut, all their issues, the majority of their issues with the theatrical cut went away. I literally saw people who bashed the hell out of BVS, called it clunky, disjointed, made fun of certain scenes, talked about things that didn't make sense, and then came out once they saw the ultimate cut. Now they're in love with it. They think it's great. Now they don't
Hmm.
have as many negative things to say about it. And that's exactly what I think is going to happen if Muschietti's cut comes out. Not only that, if Muschietti's 4 hour cut is allowed to be released the way Muschietti intends, a lot of those James Gunn studio decisions that we're complaining about right now would probably be gone. Because I'm assuming you would have the Henry Cavill material. I'm assuming you would have more of Sasha Calle's Supergirl fighting. You'd have more of General Zod. You'd have more of Fiora. You'd have all the things that would have made it better and made it feel more cohesive. So no, I don't think. Like I said, I don't think anybody is fake. I think that's a misconception, and that's what we're trying to quell here. I'm not criticizing anybody for loving the movie. And just like I'm saying, it should be okay to love the movie, but it should also be okay to be critical of the movie and have issues of the movie without it impacting people personally. I don't know why people are taking it so personally that it's so personal because this person loves this movie and this person over here has issues with this movie. Why is it personal? If you love, that's the question, Apass. Why is it personal? If you love the movie, nothing I say can take that away from you. If I hate the movie, nothing you say can take that away from me. But I don't hate the movie. I liked the
Yeah,
movie.
me
I
either.
just had issues with the movie.
Hmm.
Okay. I mean, is it, and I'm being honest about it. I think we're being more honest about it, quite frankly, than I've seen a lot of people be about this movie. I don't know what movie, uh, what movie some people saw versus the movie that I saw to make them feel the way that they do. But I understand that film is subjective and that
Yeah.
we all have differences of opinion, and that we can all be adults about it and respect each other's opinions. So I'm not saying that about anybody. I hope Necron that you're not taking it that way, because that's not what I mean. That's not what we're trying to say here. Robert Harrison says, you want Zack Snyder to come back and finish the story arc for WBD, Comcast for Justice League 2 and 3, and maybe 4. Kevin Feige over at Marvel Studios has to go, meaning retire. Well, I don't know. I'm in the camp, Robert, that I think that the best course of action for Zack Snyder to be able to finish his story arc is the sell to Netflix campaign. I think that's the best option, and Apass and I will get into a little bit of that too, on a related topic once we get done talking about the Flash right now, because there's some things that we're going to bring up that I think a lot of you will, you guys will understand. These justice comparisons are ridiculous. Justice comparisons. The only comparisons we're making to the theatrical cut of Justice League is to say that the movie was meddled with. Yeah, like you can't tell me that the movie wasn't meddled with. There's some scenes in the movie where there are some glaring issues that clearly the movie was meddled with. Not to mention the fact that Muschietti has come out himself and talked about a 4-hour director's cut. So what do you mean? Why would those comparisons be ridiculous in the context of a director and his cut of a movie versus the studio released version? That's all I'm saying. I'm not comparing them as far as content. I'm not saying that, we've said, Apass and I have already said that we're not comparing The Flash to the theatrical cut of Justice League as far as content. The Flash is definitely a superior movie. It's definitely a better movie. It's a good movie. It's not a bad movie. We're not putting it in that category at all. So the only comparisons we're making is in terms of the studio meddling with the movie. The studio meddled with this movie. It's clear. Come on, Necron. You're a student of Sil and Mikey, so you know the studio meddled with this movie. All right? George Clooney and Aquaman's cameo at the end. Aquaman's cameo, that did nothing for the movie. That wasn't Muschietti's original plan for the movie. You know what the original ending was. Okay, the original ending was something completely different. Sasha Calle has gone on record talking about all her fight scenes and things that were cut out of the movie that would have made the movie a rated R film. Okay, there's a lot of stuff. That means that the studio meddled with the movie, which means you can legitimately make comparisons to the theatrical cut of Justice League. Again, I'm not talking about final product and content in regards to the actual movie itself. I think The Flash is 100% a better movie than that.
Yeah.
I don't, again, if WBD has issues against movements, quit campaigning, comparing the products.
Compromising. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And tampering.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. WB meddling will always be the downfall of these movies. Exactly. That's what it is. If they would just stay out of these movies and let the filmmakers make the movies they want to make, there wouldn't be any of these problems. Because could you imagine, Apass, if we were able to judge these movies on their own merit and what they were actually supposed to be versus, there's a studio version over here and then there's a 4-hour cut over here that's vastly superior. Well, of course it's vastly superior because it's not following any goofy studio mandates.
Yeah.
I don't get it.
Make sense. Business-wise, it doesn't make sense. Like,
You hire a
I don't.
filmmaker. You hire a filmmaker to do a job. Okay.
Right.
You
Yes.
bring in Andy Muschietti, knowing what Andy Muschietti is going to bring to the table. You let the man tell his story. You let the man do what he wants to do. It's no secret. He wanted that Ray Fisher cameo. He wanted Ray Fisher in that movie. It's no secret. Okay? There's no secret that they filmed scenes with Henry Cavill. It's no secret. Those scenes exist. They were filmed. I don't see how people can give the studio a pass with the kind of stuff that they're doing. They're still doing it. They have not learned anything from Zack Snyder. They have not learned anything from the David Ayer situation. I'm
It's insanity.
Really, it blows my mind. I don't understand how we can even give WBD any kind of benefit of the doubt in this situation. It's very clear. I want to see Justice League 3, Justice League 2 and 3, preferably with Snyder. Yeah.
Oh,
one similarity between the Zack Snyder's Justice League is the focus on the parents. Zack Snyder's Justice League was about the dads. Victor, Barry's dead.
Yeah.
The Flash was about his mom. Yeah. And what me and Apass just said, Barry's mom. All the scenes with Barry and his mom were heartfelt and touching scenes. They were all good scenes. It was very good acting. They did a wonderful job in those scenes. There were some very emotional sequences in this movie, and they were good. Ezra is a good actor. I'm not going to lie. I think Ezra did a great job, all things considered. You're talking about a movie that is all over the place, and Ezra did the best he could with the material he was given. So, or they were given. I always forget to use. It's just one of those things. But yeah, what did you think of just Ezra overall? If you want to.
No, I thought they were like just incredible, like acting wise, even though some of the younger Barry lines I felt were a little obnoxious, but I get it. He was supposed to be like 18. So yeah, I get that angle, but I just still felt it was a little much. With some of the
it went on for a little bit too long.
Just a little bit too long. Yeah.
I wasn't really, I got used to it. I mean, after a while, I got kind of used to what they were doing. And I liked, one of the things that I did like was that the younger Barry had a character arc. And they actually gave the younger Barry a purpose outside of just being an annoying character or a foil to our Barry. And it sort of made sense in that respect. So I was pretty, overall with that, I was pretty okay with that. And, it couldn't have been easy for Ezra for them working with themselves on that, with that dynamic constantly. That takes talent, and that shows you the quality of an actor that Ezra
100%.
100% there. So Showcast says, and let's not forget the Flash has crossed into another universe already in Arrow, and that's not mentioned, which means it's not the same Flash from the real Snyderverse or this Flash movie. That's an interesting take. I didn't even stop to think about that either.
Me either.
The possibility that this could be a completely different Barry.
I didn't think of that either. Wow.
Because ultimately, thinking about the universe that Barry ultimately ends up in, where you have, he's in the Clooney verse. But is it really the Clooney verse, or is it a combination of the Clooney verse with the Snyder verse? and it's a different thread, like spaghetti, like what Michael Keaton was talking about.
Yeah, that's definitely what I think. It's combining the two into another separate thing. Yeah, one of the strands of spaghetti. Yeah.
All these notes, obviously you're speaking about James Gunn, were useless since it didn't help the box office.
That was purposeful.
Yeah,
I believe that 100%. Like, it's sabotage.
Yeah, James Gunn. Make no mistake, James Gunn is Marvel Studios' Trojan horse coming to DC. He is not trying to help DC, and the sooner people understand that, the better off they're going to be. This is a guy who never wanted to touch Superman with a 10-foot pole. This is a guy who's been on countless interviews talking about how he prefers the more obscure characters, the characters that he can do whatever he wants with. He doesn't want to mess with the canon of the bigger characters and things like that. He said that for years and years and years. And now all of a sudden he's doing Superman, and this movie's got to be his magnum opus. Give me a break. He's coming into DC to run DC into the ground, and he's doing it movie by movie. His little notes are strategic, they're on purpose, and I swear to God, just like I said earlier with me and Apass, the George Clooney thing was cool for a lot of us because we know who George Clooney was, so we appreciate that little nod to the older Batman movies. But a lot of these kids now that are going there watching these movies, they don't know who the hell George Clooney is. They don't know anything. They're like, huh? Like, who's that? Like, you might as well have, again, left it ambiguous who that Batman was, because at least, you could have used it later. But this tells me that there are no plans for Gunn to use Ezra in the future. There are no plans for Gunn to return to this if Gunn actually is allowed to pursue his DCU, to do what he wants to do. Ezra is going to be where we left them.
Mm-hmm.
I guarantee you that if the Flash is ever used again in the Gunverse, it'll be somebody completely different. Guaranteed. There'll never be another reference to Ezra again. It's clear. And they made a joke. And here's the thing I don't understand. Why would you make a joke out of Aquaman if your next movie, okay, for all you people that are defending The Flash like it's the greatest movie since The Dark Knight, and y'all are take so many issues with those of us who are speaking our legitimate criticisms about this movie, what do you say about the Aquaman? What's the deal with that? They literally have an Aquaman movie coming out at the end of the year. So why would you want to make Jason Momoa look like a buffoon, a drunken buffoon, at the end of your Flash movie? The ending doesn't move the needle. It doesn't do anything for continuity or story or anything. Why would you be okay with that? Every single one of these people talking about how great the Flash movie is should be screaming at the top of their lungs about this scene. Because I'm going to tell you something. If that scene is just as important to the Flash movie as the Henry Cavill scene was to Black Adam. And if you don't believe me, look at it. Think about it this way. The next movie coming out is literally an Aquaman movie. Although I do think Blue Beetle comes out before that, and James Gunn has said that Blue Beetle is the first DCU movie. So that makes even less sense.
He's such an ass.
But we're supposed to forgive all of the Flash's faults. We're supposed to overlook everything and just say, "Oh, this is the greatest movie of all time." We're just supposed to be appreciative of what we get. If somebody puts, mixed Jell-O in front of you and there's crap in that Jell-O, you're just supposed to be thankful because you're getting Jell-O for dessert tonight. I guess that's what the moral of the story is when it comes to some of these people, because I don't get it.
I don't either.
I mean, this is real talk. There's some things in the movie that was really great, that were really well done, and I'm really appreciative that they exist, and I liked the movie. But liking the movie and loving the movie are two very different things. I wanted to love this movie, and I'm disappointed that I don't.
Yeah, same here.
That's what it is. If you want to know anything, I'm butthurt that I don't love this movie. It bothers me that I don't love this movie. I had higher expectations for this movie. I expected more from this movie. And if some of you are happy enough with the movie and love it and got everything you wanted out of it, I'm happy for you. That's great. That's beautiful. Good on you. But don't come at me for having my opinion and for me not being happy and for me expecting more out of this movie, because we waited long enough for this movie that these flaws and these things that we got in this movie now should have been ironed out. The PlayStation 2 animation, there's no excuse for. I'm sorry. This is 2023. Okay? Please tell me how that's acceptable. And if you and when you tell me it's a creative choice, I laugh. A creative choice. Yeah, okay. A creative choice. Even though they told everybody who saw the movie at CinemaCon that was not the finished movie and that the special effects were still being worked on. And guess what? Every person who went to see the movie at CinemaCon came back and told us when they saw the movie again that the special effects never changed. They're exactly the same as what they saw at CinemaCon. So once again, big surprise, WBD lied. But if you guys all want to forgive that and you guys all want to think, but Zod, it's a great movie. Oh, Zod, you don't know what you're talking about. No, I do know what I'm talking about. And I expected more out of this movie. That's all. Too. I just expected more.
It
was mediocre. That's what it was.
That's what it was. Yeah.
It had some nice moments. It had some great sequences, had some good story beats. But overall, if you take it all together, you take the good, the bad, and the ugly together as three things, it was mediocre.
Mm-hmm.
With that being said, I liked it a little bit more than Black Adam.
Yeah.
Just a little bit. Slightly.
Yeah.
Just slightly.
Yeah, I gotta admit that too. Like literally, Black Adam, I only liked it because Cavill's of Cavill.
That's great. I only liked it because of Cavill.
Well, actually, no. That's not
Cavill
true.
was in it for 3 seconds.
Wait, let me go back. Let me backtrack a little bit. I loved Hawkman. I loved Dr. Fate. Basically, the JSA. I loved the JSA and Cavill, but that was about it for me.
See, and this is the thing. I loved Dr. Fate. I didn't mind, Black Adam in the movie. I liked, of course, the Cavill scene. That was the whole draw to get us, us Snyder bots into the theater, right? Yeah, Henry Cavill, but it didn't move the needle.
It didn't, and I know we're backtracking like several months at this point, but
it's beautiful.
I just what I don't. Okay, I'm angry at the Snyder only fans for, not going to see Black Adam because of the fact that Henry Cavill was in it. But at the same time, WBD putting that it's again asinine. Just relying on a 10-second cameo to make or break this man's future as Superman is bullshit. It is bullshit. Like I'm sorry that no.
That wasn't even the plan. The plan was to backstab Henry Cavill the whole time. That's just the truth. It didn't matter. It didn't matter how well Black Adam did, because look at James Gunn. James Gunn's going to do what he wanted to do. And now they're going to use the failure of this Flash movie as a way to, continue to rub salt in the wound and be like, see, the reboot was justified, and you know, nobody cares about Zack Snyder's characters. And that's not true. The general audience did not go see this movie because of other reasons. Like it or not, the general audience, the general public, has issues with Ezra Miller. You ask people in the real world, not our little online space, not the Twitter space, people that just have everyday lives and don't live, breathe, eat, and sleep this stuff like we do. They don't like Ezra Miller because they read 5 or 6 articles about what a dastardly human being he is, or they are, and what they allegedly did. And God forbid they steal beer. There's rumors about them grooming and doing all kinds of crazy stuff. That's all the general public knows, okay?
Yeah.
And if WB thinks it's going to be any better when they try to put out that turd that's Aquaman 2, and they got Amber Heard in there, they think that's going to be any better, they're going to get another dose of low numbers because people aren't going to go see that either. And that's the facts. That's the cold, hard facts of this situation. You can talk all you want about Snyder fans, or, oh, you're just hating Zod. You're just being a hater, Apass. You can say all that, all you want. But the truth is, that's the reality. That's what the reality is. And a lot of you, I'm sorry, a lot of you do need to wake the F up, because a lot of you do live in a fantasy world. And you think that, dude, we're just going to, push it under the rug and nobody's going to care. I will tell you this. I know of at least 5 people in my real life who normally go to see all these superhero movies on a regular basis. And every single one of those 5 people off the top of my head that I can name that I regularly talk to in my real life all told me a big resounding hell no when I asked them if they were going to see The Flash. And when I went in depth with a couple of people, a couple of my closest friends, childhood friends, I went in depth about why. Ezra Miller. So that's real talk. Whether it's true or not, whether it's true, false, that's not what I'm arguing here. I'm saying that is a factor because people only see what they see. You read 10, 12 articles from the biased media about one topic, it's going to impact your view. And that's just the way it goes. So to me, I may see it differently, and I may look at it because I pay closer attention to all this stuff, just like you, Apass, just like Necron and Skywalker and Syl and Leon and Batman. We see all sides of it because we're into this stuff. Right. But every day, just people that just normally go about their lives and don't really think about it this hard, they're only getting that negative side to the story. And whether it's true or not, it's impacting the way that they perceive the movie. And that's why this box office is as low as it is right now.
Yep. That's exactly it.
Because listen, how many times did Syl say he saw the movie already? How many times did a few of our other friends say that they've seen the movie already? I mean, Cameron Robinson with the $9.99. Thank you. He says, also, let's be clear here. Prior to The Dark Knight and Man of Steel, DC rolled out Catwoman, Superman Returns, and Green Lantern, which were failures, especially Superman 2006. Legacy better sell $1 billion. And it's not going to. It's going to be a big, fat, parenthesized L. The fattest L you've ever seen in your life. Because here's the thing. I bought the idea about Black Adam kind of being ruined by people who were basically Snyder only fans, and they didn't, and they didn't go see it. But I stopped and thought about it, Apass, and I came to this conclusion. The general audience didn't show up for Black Adam unless they were big fans of The Rock.
Yeah.
They didn't show up because they don't know who the hell Black Adam is. Black Adam is an obscure character if you think about it. And if you don't believe me and you don't think that Black Adam is an obscure character, ask yourself how much money Shazam 2 made. If Shazam 2 couldn't make a buck at the box office, what hope did Black Adam have? Let's be real here.
Yeah.
The Flash is a lot more well-known than Black Adam. So the Flash, rightly, is projected to make more because Flash is a pretty well-known character. And I don't buy that the general audience doesn't know who the Flash is, because some people were saying, oh, well, the general audience may not know who the Flash is. The Flash had a TV show for 10 years.
What?
Not only that, the Flash had a show back in the 90s. The Flash had a show that literally just ended a few weeks ago. So miss me with that mess.
Mm-hmm.
The general audience knows exactly who Flash is. The only reason the majority are not turning out for this movie is because of the Ezra Miller controversy.
Yep. That and WBD's shenanigans.
I'm kind of, when it comes to the WBD shenanigans, I'm kind of like caught in the middle on that, because I wonder about how much of the WBD shenanigans the general public really knows about and really cares that much about. Whereas Ezra Miller is a celebrity, and you've been seeing their faces plastered on tabloid magazines in the grocery store, online articles, newspaper articles.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
There's tabloid TV shows. How many bad reports has TMZ done on Ezra Miller? I just, when I think about it, I think that in this case, Ezra Miller is a bigger factor than even the crap with WBD. WBD issue is an issue that we have, but the butts in the seats.
Well, yeah. I guess what I mean by the WBD shenanigans is also like the DC brand confusion.
That too.
Yeah,
DC brand confusion, because there were so many people who were confused when they went to the theater. And believe me, there were a few people that went to the theater for James Gunn's The Suicide Squad. This was the first theatrical release, I think, after Zack Snyder's Justice League came out. Correct me if I'm wrong.
I think it might, yeah. Mm-hmm.
And these people literally went into the theater and were like, where's Batman? Where's Superman? Where's Darkseid? This was a sentiment that I was hearing from regular people that just go to see these movies because they like these characters, but they're not all steeped into the lore like we are.
Yeah.
How do you fumble the ball so hard that you allow that travesty to get released into theaters, but you don't put Zack Snyder's Justice League in theaters, even though you know all these people saw Zack Snyder's Justice League? Apass, I don't get it. I'm hurting right now because you and me both went into this movie wanting to love it. We were as hyped as everybody else. We were like, you know what? Whatever. And it's going to be great. And it wasn't great.
Yeah.
It was good, but it wasn't great.
Yeah. It just didn't, certain parts that we've discussed were great, but just the movie as a whole, no, it wasn't
great. Wasn't great. Didn't hit it at all. Bat Dan's Thought says, why did they have Barry Allen steal beer from his neighbor's fridge? Maybe not the best thing considering real life. You see what I mean, Bat Dan?
Yeah.
You see what I'm talking about? This right here. In fact, Bat Dan, I'm going to pin your comment, because that comment to me is really poignant, and is something I want to talk about with I want to talk about with Apass here. So I'm gonna go ahead and pin this comment. Thank you for making that comment. I know I'm a little bit behind here on the chat, but yeah, I don't know, Batman. I think that was distasteful, and you cut out all the Sasha Calle, all the good R-rated Sasha Calle fight scenes, but you leave the scene in the movie where Flash is literally stealing beer, like he did in real life.
Yeah,
I mean, he actually
not a good look.
went to court over that. So I don't know. I'm hurting over that one.
Yeah. Sabotage.
I got another super chat. I'm having trouble pulling it up on the screen for some reason from Carmen. Oh no, I actually read that. I actually read that one already. Okay, I just wanted to make sure I read that one because I saw your other super chat, and I wasn't sure if I'd read it. And then the StreamYard kind of jumped and skipped a few people, so now it's kind of gone down. So I just wanted to make sure that I got everything, but I did get that. But yeah, Batman, your comment makes perfect sense. I don't know why. I wish that scene wasn't in the movie, just in terms of, I understand the gag that they were going for in the context of his room being messy, of him having kind of like a hole in the wall apartment, and I could kind of relate to that because I have a hole in the wall small apartment too, so I can kind of relate to that concept of, your place is small and you're trying to clean it up really quickly because it's a little cluttered and you want to impress somebody or something like that. I'm sure that's something that everybody can relate to, especially in that situation. But the problem is it's disrespectful in the context of real life. You are absolutely right, Bat Dan. I don't know why that scene was there, and that's another one of the negatives. Like, for just trying to be realistic about it. You're right. So as much as I hated Ezra Miller's publicity was not good for the Flash, I still think there's a media accountability with this, but that's another conversation. Well,
yeah.
How do you feel about that? When what Batman just said, Apass, about media accountability?
I mean, yeah, across the board, I think there needs to be media accountability, not just with this situation, but like, yeah, with this, there was a lot being thrown at Ezra.
The problem,
whether it be true or not.
Yeah, whether it be true or not. But the problem is, once you put that perception in people's minds, berating them day after day, month after month with tabloid Ezra Miller stories, it's gonna stick. And no amount of media retraction at that point is going to save it. You've already planted it. It's already there. So the perception is going to remain until Ezra does something so good for humanity that people will forget, or enough time passes, similar to, like what happened with Robert Downey Jr., where time passed and he was able to resurrect and reconstruct his career based off of things that he did later on. I don't. Now, I do feel like this movie is still getting hit in unimaginable, horrible, unnecessary ways. I honestly, I didn't think it would be this bad. I thought that Ezra would have some impact on the box office, but I didn't think it would be like a scenario where, it was going to be one of the lowest box offices of all time. I mean, for this type of film.
I never would have thought that. Never. That's
Keo Dykin says, my wife didn't know about Ezra, prior to seeing the movie. I told her, and she was disgusted. Well, you see, that's what I mean. That's what I mean, Kyodaikin. Once people, it doesn't matter if it's true or it's not true, if it's proven or not proven. Once you go down that rabbit hole and you start talking about things like grooming and kidnapping and some of the things he was accused of, they were accused of, it's hard to come back from that.
Yeah.
That's why when people get canceled and things like that, it's not because they actually, whether they did it or they didn't do it, it's the perception of once you're perceived to be this or perceived to have done this, that's what it is.
Mm-hmm.
There's no way you can, it's hard to live it down. It's hard to find a way to come. And not only that, it's like the movie comes out and it's just like, I think I agree with Sil and Mikey on this. I think they said today that it might have been better if they would have just released the movie on Max. And I think that they were right.
Yeah, I think so too.
They were too far along, and it would have been too complicated to recast Miller with the way that the story is structured, if you can call it structured. So I think it would have been better to put it on HBO. It actually would have did better. The streaming numbers would have been better because people would have watched it. It's a lot easier to hit your HBO Max app and watch something through there than, you get up, you got to go to a theater, you got to buy your tickets, it takes more effort to go to the movies, to physically go to the movies. So you would have had more people that would have watched The Flash, and the numbers would have been better, and the payoff would have been better. Whereas now it's just embarrassing because the thing is just losing money. It's like the Titanic right now. It's hemorrhaging so horribly.
Yeah.
Sin Havoc says it wasn't just because of Pierce Brosnan. Black Adam talked about gods, and you're saying about why Black Adam was banned in China. Yeah, it didn't get a Chinese release. Released the Supergirl cut. Released the machete cut. I want to see those cuts, those cut Supergirl scenes. Yeah, I want to see those too. But my God, what was something else that we haven't talked about yet that you liked about the movie? Apass.
Oh my God. Let me run it through my head a little bit, because at the moment I'm a little foggy.
Yeah, that's what I mean. You got to sift through all this crap to find the good stuff. You got to be like, oh, not this.
So let's go through the list again. The first thing being Snyderverse is canon, and it doesn't erase it.
That's yes.
Second, Michael Keaton is badass. Third, Ezra Miller's performance. Sasha Calle's, for what little she was given as well, she was good. The Justice League opening scene. Seeing them work together. Yeah, that was
seeing
great.
them work together out of as a team, just like the Justice League animated series. Yeah.
The only thing that was missing was an actual scene with Henry Cavill, but
it could have been perfect. And I even said this. I think I said this yesterday. They could have just had Henry. They could have even had Cavill come back, had him in a black suit to appeal to everybody, just to get if you wanted to get butts in the seats, that's what you needed to do, because that's the thing that they all harp on. Oh, he's not wearing the black suit, so put him in the black suit for that. Have I don't know. I mean, I would have liked to have seen like a parademon fly out of the Speed Force.
That was another thing that you mentioned last night. I was like, oh my God, yes. They should have done that as another reference, another connective tissue to the Snyder Cut. Yeah.
Yeah, I
100%.
would have liked to have seen something along those lines where you
But
just, you know,
that would,
or even Dark Side.
but Dr. Colonel Sanders wouldn't have wanted that because that's too epic. That's not wacky enough for him. So
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, we weren't going to get that no matter what. We weren't going to
yeah,
get it.
if
We
it
weren't.
was DeLuca and Abdi that were like in charge, maybe that would be a different story. But
Yeah, and Cavill's scenes would have been so easy to use as well.
yeah.
I think we needed Cavill for a number
Oh
of reasons, and not to mention the big team up between Sasha Calle and Henry Cavill.
yeah. Mm-hmm.
I think that would have made so much sense. And and we also know that she filmed stuff at the end for the ending too, because there's screenshots, screen caps of her at the courthouse at the end of the film
Yeah, Michael Keaton
that were
and
literally used in the trailers.
This
Colonel Gunn is an incompetent idiot. I couldn't agree more.
Literally. Yep.
Cavill's faceless cameo was the red suit. Well, no, Cavill had a cameo in the Speed Force where you see him fighting Barry. You see like a recreation of him fighting Barry from the Snyder Cut, and he was topless and his face was messed up, distorted a little, PS2 style.
Yeah.
And but I wish, the black suit and the Man of Steel theme. Yeah, that's all you needed. And that's another thing I was irritated with. They gave us Wonder Woman's theme when she appeared during the Justice League team up.
I got hyped.
And that was great. I got hyped. I even got hyped when she flew away. And another thing that people should be excited about and know that this is Snyderverse and not any of the other stuff is because Wonder Woman had her sword.
Yes.
Patty Jenkins took her sword away for Wonder Woman 84. Remember, it was all about love.
It was all about the love and bringing back Steve Trevor from the dead. Never letting him die.
So he's not allowed to die. Even if she has to literally put Steve Trevor in other men's bodies and rape those guys to keep him alive, it's completely okay because she can't get over her grief. And Patty Jenkins can't get over her obsession with Chris Pine. So, with that being said, that's pretty much the problem. But she had her sword.
Yes, she did.
People are complaining. Well, no, she flew, and she only did that in Wonder Woman. She only did that in Wonder Woman 84. But she's a warrior. She was going to eventually, in Wonder Woman's lore, she eventually flies. Yes. So it made sense to have her be able to fly away like that. I had no issues with Gal Gadot's cameo. None whatsoever. When you compare her cameo with the Shazam cameo, she should get an award for her cameo in Flash.
Yep.
Is this movie subject to the new false advertisement laws? Movies can't do anymore. Movies showing trailers and scenes omitted from the movie. I don't, Keo Dyken, I don't know. I hope so, because that's pretty.
If Ana de Armas fans can do it, we can do it.
Oh my God. Nightmare Robin says, woke Hollywood hates Cavill. Just look at The Witcher.
Yeah.
Well, I guess we can veer off a little bit from Flash and
Oh,
go
okay. Can we talk
into
about Tadum?
I was just gonna transition you into that because I know you really wanted to talk about that, and you had me up last night watching the scenes from that, and I love you for doing that because I was like, man, I gotta pay attention to what you were talking about, and you, I watched all that stuff, so please go into that, Apass, because your take is phenomenal.
Okay, so after Sill's stream that Zod was on, I watched Tadum, the scene, the parts with Cavill, the Snyders, and Gal, and just of course, Henry is the embodiment of Superman. Like, he was so humble, so just just grateful to be there, feeling the love that he deserves after all the shit he's been put through. And then, of course, I think after chronologically, I think it went to Rebel Moon. And of course, needless to say, can't wait for that movie. And then we go to Heart of Stone. And okay, so the one co-star in the movie was going off about Gal's character, and she mentions that she's a wonderful woman. All of a sudden, you see Gal go like this, and the biggest roar, and that goes across the board for all of them, to be honest. Henry, of course, nonstop applause. Snyder's got so much love as well. And then when she did that, I took that as a big FU to Gunn and WBD, because not only wasn't there also an article where she came out talking about officially saying she's not Wonder Woman anymore, and she
yes, in fact, I can show. I guess I'll show this here because this is actually very important to what we're saying here. So just a second, let me pull that up. You are 100% on that, but let's take a look at this here. James Gunn's first action as DC's new chief was to get rid of Henry Cavill and Gal Gadot. And Gal actually came out and said that I think she came out and said she's done as Wonder Woman, and or at least she
with
thinks
WBD
she is.
she's done.
Yeah, with WB. Yeah. And I agreed with you 100% when I watched that sequence. That was as much of a as big of an FU that you would get from Gal Gadot, because she's so polite and kind, but that was her. She had so much energy and enthusiasm. It was unbelievable. And you also made another great point about Tadam. If you remember, you talked about how the audience was so enamored and so into everything that they were all saying that there's no way that they're done, that the audience is done and wants to see these actors move on.
Not from those characters. And when I mean, I know that we'll have a bunch of haters and trolls say, well, you guys didn't show up to see them in the theater, blah, 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 blah. We're talking about the versions of the characters that were promised to us with Zack Snyder. That's what ultimately all of us want to see, that's what it comes down to. And hence why you see some of the fan base not coming out to support the films, whether that's right or wrong, boycotting and all that. Believe me, I was a part of the boycott crowd a couple years ago. I
was too. I was too.
Yeah.
I was too. Until, and then and then when Sky kind of reinvigorated all of us with the Celsius JL campaign, and it kind of got everybody motivated and hyped again, and here we are. And with that, we're going to bring in our first special guest together as host and co-host. This is a good friend of mine. I haven't had him on the ZodWriter show before, but I was actually planning on bringing him on for a late night Q&A at some point. But this is my good friend that I know from the home arcade and gaming and Raspberry Pi scene and all that, all the other stuff I'm involved in. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to welcome the great Keaton Batfleck to the ZodWriter show. Welcome, man. Good to have you.
Thank you, Zod. Thanks for inviting me on. And Apass, nice to meet you. How are you?
Oh, nice to meet you. I'm good. How about you?
Oh, I'm doing good, man. I've been fired up since this whole topic of the Flash came on, so I had a whole lot to get off my chest. And I love ZodWriter, and he's passionate about what he says, and I just had to put in my 2 cents.
Oh, yeah.
So, where are we at right now on the show?
Well, I basically just want to get a few of your like a skeleton of your basic thoughts overall of this Flash movie, because Apass and I are taking a lot of heat, ironically, from friends of ours who really love this movie. So
Right.
I want to kind of get some of your feedback on where you are as a fan and how you felt about Flash.
So I thought I agree with what you said earlier. Like, this movie was a skeleton for potential, but it really missed the mark. I think my biggest thoughts. I love the movie. I liked it, but it's one of those things where it had so much potential to offer more, and I think people who like it don't understand that. I think they're caught up in the hype. I think they're caught up in the cameos. I'll give you a prime example. Chris Hemsworth. A few weeks ago, he made an announcement, said he thought that Thor: Love and Thunder was silly. But if you go back to when the movie came out, people would say, "Oh, it was epic. It was great. It was this. It was that." Well, then, if the actor comes back out and says the movie sucked or it was too silly, well, then how do you voice your opinion and say, "Well, the movie was epic" if he didn't like it and he was the actor? And the same thing with Justice League. I have friends who loved the Joss Whedon's version. They said it was great. I said, well, couldn't they have done this and do this and, maybe improved upon it, maybe add some more action? But then the Snyder Cut came out, and then it was like, oh, man, that was epic. That was awesome. Like, well, what do you think we were complaining about when the movie didn't do as well, or if there were certain action scenes that could have been added? So that's what we're talking about. Is I think people are caught so much into the hype of things that they aren't being realistic with expectations. And I commented earlier about, I think it's going to expose people to the fakes if they say they love this movie. I'm talking about the diehard people. If they say they love this movie and then the 4-hour version comes out and then they're like, oh my God, that was epic. Well, then why did you settle for this other thing that was released? And my biggest gripe with the Flash movie was the fact that Michael Keaton didn't get enough screen time. I don't think he did get enough screen time. There was, if you're looking at the movie from a 2-hour perspective, I don't know how long it was, 2 hours, 30 minutes, whatever it might have been, and you have Ezra Miller walking around acting silly things, and then you have Supergirl, you have Michael Keaton, you have so much scope of other things, other stories that could have been talked about, we could have caught up on, and you spent so much time with silliness. Then you spend time with Ezra Miller and Aquaman at the end of the movie. You could have cut out all that. That's I personally think that fight scene with Bruce Wayne when he saw the two flashes or whatever, that was a waste of screen time. Again, we're talking about 2 hours. If that was a 5-hour movie, 6-hour movie, whatever, go ahead, you can add on whatever. But not when you're talking about the scope of a 2-hour movie. And you're right. Somebody said something about how come we didn't see any parademons. There's just so much stuff that they could have added. And personally, I think that more of those cameos that we saw at the end of the movie in the Speed Force, that should have been added when he went through the Speed Force the first time, because you were captivated there. You would have seen that. So I gave the movie originally a 7 out of 10. Then after I saw these posts that the cut out a lot of the cameos, or there was 3 different endings, I gave it a 6, because you have all this meddling and stuff going on with the companies, and that there was another ending that they intended to release and then they didn't. No, I gave it a 6.
Yeah, I was with you there, Keodaikin, on as far as the scale goes. I was at a 7 initially, and then Apass, when you and I we started talking and I started thinking about it, and it kind of etched down to a 6 because I realized that if there's more negative than positive,
Right.
you can't even really give it a 7, because if you give it a 7, you're giving it a pass for being, even if there's things like Apass and I, there's things we liked about it, but if you're going to if you give it a pass, you're going to give it a 7. If you're just going to say, okay, it was okay, it was whatever, it was ultimately mid, but okay, I'm going to give it a 7 and be done with it. But I'm with you, man. I got to give it a 6 at this
Yeah.
point.
And the thing about it is too, I initially gave it a 7, and my nephew and his friend, they both gave it a 6 or a 6.5, and they're younger than I am. So that was their takeaway, and they know I'm really critical about movies. I didn't say anything to them, and I gave it a higher grade than they did. So that was really shocking. But for me, again, a 2-hour movie, and if I was comparing this to the Flashpoint Paradox, which came out, which was an animation, I was not familiar with the Flashpoint Paradox comic books or anything. I learned more from that movie and felt a better a connection with Flash from the Flashpoint Paradox than I did this movie. Him running back in time. He gave Batman the letter from Thomas Wayne. He cried. Him yelling out saying, "Mom, I'm sorry." I understand that Ezra Miller and that his mother in that movie, they had a connection, but it wasn't as much as the Flashpoint Paradox, and that was what, an hour and 20 minutes.
Yeah, it was like an hour and a half at most, and it was much better done, and it was more based off of the actual comic book storyline, and they managed to condense it into a movie that was cohesive, that hit all the right points. And again, and it's so funny that you did that, because after I watched The Flash, I came home that day and I watched Flashpoint Paradox, because I have the animated movie, and I watched that and I was like, wow, I was amazed. I was like, yeah, this is a much better film. This is a much tighter film, better writing, better acting in some areas. I mean, was just a better story overall.
Yeah, it was. And you figure, it's like, how did they squeeze all that into an hour 20 minutes, and then you have a 2-hour live action? It's like, where did the time go? And I went back and I said, all that silliness of Ezra Miller talking to himself, him losing his powers, okay, that's fine, but it was just that time they spent in the bedroom talking to each other, and him having to re-explain how did you get your powers, and what happened. I don't still understand why was there two Flashes or two Barry Allens at that point. It was my understanding it was supposed to be only one based upon the timeline. That's another thing that still kind of lost me. But I would have, and then also too with Bruce Wayne, Michael Keaton, I would have preferred to see him doing his Batman thing and being prepared for the Kryptonian threat. Instead, he's like a hermit locked away, with Wayne Enterprises. He had satellites. He would have been prepared. He would have known that there was an alien that crash landed in Russia years ago, or something. He was just totally out of the loop. And to me, if he would have had maybe some kryptonite to fight with, and maybe him take out a couple of Zod's army guys, that would have been a bigger epic battle, and having him be prepared. I mean, if we're thinking about it, Batman's always prepared. Like, how much prep time does Batman need? You mean to tell me not Michael Keaton, but Bruce Wayne wouldn't have had his satellites and known something was orbiting the Earth prior to the Flash telling him that?
That's a great point, and I love how you brought up the idea about the kryptonite, because Batman might have had some. Maybe the only reason he didn't have any was because the Kryptonians had never come to that Earth before, so that could be why. But really, yeah, it's kind of, there's a lot of things. And Apass, how cool would it have been to see Michael Keaton use like a spear, or even Supergirl to use like a kryptonite spear to kill Zod, or to kill one of the Kryptonians, even though Keaton did get a nice fight with a Kryptonian that he managed to kill with just a bomb, which I thought was pretty cool.
Yeah, that would have been so, it would have been even more. It would be epic to see Keaton carrying a freaking spear. made of kryptonite.
Yeah,
You know?
either
Yeah, like,
Keaton
yeah.
or Supergirl. And Charles
Yeah.
Briggs asks here, how realistic is it that we will ever see the 4-hour Muschietti cut, seeing how the movie bombed so hard? I think that's exactly why we will see it. I think because
Yeah.
they're going to want to sell this movie on video, and they're going to need some kind of a hook to get people to buy it, because they got to make money somehow off of this. And when it bombs that bad, if they've got the Muschietti cut, they might as well release it. I mean, not that long ago, and I don't know if you guys know, but not that long ago, releasing director's cuts was actually pretty common. It was just something that they did, and they would do it usually when the movie came out on home video, if there was one. If there was a known director's cut, there was no real controversy surrounding it. So I don't know, but I don't know. I think we'll see it.
Yeah, if they're hurting for money, we'll see it.
Yeah, why let it sit there? I mean, if you could sell a few more 4K Blu-rays by releasing it, you might as well. More digital downloads. I don't agree. Keaton's Batman was hardly a detective. Where it failed is Barry should have known about kryptonite. That's it. That was the key. Barry knew about kryptonite. So Barry could have told Keaton's Batman about kryptonite. And there could have been some sort of scenario there. Maybe Barry might have actually even had some kryptonite on him.
Well, I think the other thing too is when they rescued Supergirl and they pulled her out of there, just the Batman character. Like, let's say if this was even Tim Conroy's Batman, you're walking around when they pulled her out of that shelter or whatever, that dome where she was. Then he would have used a flashlight, looked around the room, analyzed the lights, like, why is it red in here? There's some green. There just would have been a little bit more detective work from the idea that there's Batman and he's examining some stuff. And that's where I thought maybe they would have took that a little bit in that direction, or maybe he was just prepared in general. So he just kind of came off as clueless in that regard, but he knew a whole lot about the space-time continuum. He knew a whole lot about the space-time continuum, but not meteorites that could possibly fall out of the sky or whatever the Russians constructed that cage out of. You would have had the specs for that cage. Oh, they're holding this person with... It would have been in that file somewhere, or he would have hacked it or whatever. So, yeah.
Yeah, because he's Batman. And
Right.
it sort of does like illustrate the flaws of Christina Hodgkin's script.
Right.
Because she's clearly, out of her depth when it comes to writing scripts for these movies at this point. I mean, there's certain things that could have been flushed out way better. And again, this is why I think that 4-hour cut will be essential viewing once it finally gets released, because it will give a lot of us that have pacing issues and story beats that don't make sense. Maybe they will, a lot like BVS, where there was a lot of stuff that made no sense until we saw the ultimate cut, and then it made sense because we got the context with a lot of scenes that were cut. So I don't know. By and large, I think it's just I'm hoping that they release the Muschietti cut at this point.
Yeah, I do too. And I think it was okay. Good for what it was. But like you said, the movie had a lot of potential. There's just questions and things that needed to be answered. But I want to point out a couple of things that I did notice from seeing it a second time. Is I think there was 3 variations of Barry Allen's dad. The first one was when he was in his room and Bruce Wayne sent him that file. He had on a particular hat. And then when Nora Allen died, I think the hat was darker and it had different letters, because you notice the director zoomed in on that hat. And then, of course, I knew he messed up with the Speed Force again at the end of the movie at the courthouse, because now he has on a hat and he has on headphones. So you had 3 different variations of his father there. So I knew that he had messed up before it even happened. And then we saw George Clooney come about. So I knew that timeline wasn't even the one he was supposed to be in either, by watching the hat
That was
on his face.
that was the clue when you saw the hat, that it was a
Yeah.
completely different
I think
timeline
there's
with the headphones.
Yeah, because the first one did not have headphones, if I recall, and then when he came home, and then the hat was laying down on the floor when Nora Allen was bleeding out. Then you see another hat, and then you see another hat. I think later on in the movie, whatever. But I think there was like 3 different versions of the hats.
Yeah, that could have just
That's
been
interesting.
a hint
Yeah,
of the different timelines.
And the other thing that
Yeah.
I noticed, and I don't think anybody's pointed out, is remember when Ben Affleck was delivering his last line before he drove away and he was standing there talking to Barry Allen? If you notice in the background, I think there's a restaurant or it was a pizzeria. I know it was a restaurant. It said Grayson's. But at the end, where you see him talking to Aquaman, if that's the same place, it's now a bar. So I don't know if like maybe that's around the corner, but if that's the same corner, that's a different variation from the timeline he came from.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Because I remember that because the second time I was like, you know what, I'm looking at everything else. I'm not paying attention to the actors. I'm looking to see if I can catch any other cameos. But yeah, it said Grayson's there when he was standing there talking to Ben Affleck's Batman.
that's a nice little detail.
So I don't know, maybe Dick Grayson owns a restaurant, or maybe that was just the name they just decided to slap on there for Grayson's. But if that is the same exact corner, that is not consistent with the original universe. When you see him talking to Aquaman and he falls in the water, whatever, it's now a bar. 2 totally different things.
Yeah, and again, that's a scene that we could have did without. I think the movie would have played better without that Aquaman scene.
I do too. I think they're being sneaky about something. I think because I did read an article. Somebody said, "Oh yeah, you're Aquaman no matter what universe you're in." So which means, in our world, okay, Jason Momoa is Aquaman going forward, but everything else has changed. So I think that was maybe paying homage to that, was that Jason Momoa is going to be Aquaman going forward, but everybody else is subject to change. Because Ezra Miller, Barry Allen did say that to Aquaman
And
right
and
before he
then
fell in the puddle.
and then there's the scene where Barry calls Aquaman's father, and that is Aquaman's father who answered the phone. That was him, and
Right.
but Arthur
Didn't
isn't his
exist.
son. Arthur's a dog.
Right.
And you have the whole concept of him not existing in that timeline, in the Eric Stoltz Back to the Future timeline.
Right.
Um,
Yeah, so that was another inconsistency based upon that whole, scenario.
yeah. So overall, I'm sitting here thinking, man, you could tell, Keo Daika, we've been trying to kind of balance it out with positives and negatives. But
Yeah, as best we can.
But when you only have so much positive to go with, there's only so much positivity you can glean. I mean, I don't know. How did you feel, Apass and Keo, about how the movie opened up at the sandwich shop? The whole concept of the slow sandwich clerk that wanted to talk about himself, and how did you feel? Obviously, that was played for laughs, but how did you feel about the opening? Did you think it was serviceable, or I don't know? If we're being honest, I mean, with the Chicago music playing in the background, If You Leave Me Now is probably going to go to the top of the charts again because of I don't know. I found that scene to be a bit cringe myself, just being honest.
That's how I felt too. I was like, all right, this is like, I don't mind jumping in, but that was just, again, another example of a scene being way too long. Just like, I don't know.
Yeah, I personally didn't have a problem with it. Movie's going to start out building up some type of foundation. The only thing that I took away from it that I didn't like was that they really didn't have an opening trailer, and then they cut away from the Flash opening title screen, and then have him interact with some kids, and then went back to it, and I was like, oh Lord, it's one of these kind of movies where they're bringing in the silliness factor. I don't understand like why these production companies are verging on the more or less silliness verge of things instead of having a more serious tone. Like I would have preferred, like even with Shazam, if it was had a more serious connotation to it as opposed to slapstick and stuff. So.
Yeah, slapstick is only going to take you so far, and it's like that's what they want to make the purpose. Yeah, they want to marvelize and make it so that the comedy is the most important thing. So for me, that's why I said I went into the movie thinking, okay, this is going to be a comedy. This is going to be silly. I need to check my brain at the door. When I sit down, I cannot put it in the same category as some of these other films. I have to treat it as its own thing, because if I try to take it seriously and try to blend it in with all these other movies, that's where you get your 6 out of 10 from, because you're trying to put it in the same category as something else. You're trying to make it fit with Zack Snyder's Justice League. You're trying to make it, mesh with something that it really ultimately doesn't do. It's like a comedy within that serious environment, and that kind of throws everybody off. So I don't know. I guess if you take it as a comedy, you could give it a 7 or an 8. If you want to just take it as a straight up comedy and you don't want to take it seriously, especially the way that it ended. And again, with the PS2 graphics, if you want to take all of that and you want to put it in, put it in a blender and say, okay, it's a comedy. You're supposed to take it like Back to the Future, but even Back to the Future had some serious depth to it being a comedy. So I don't know. I don't know who this was for. There's an audience disorientation with this movie. We were talking about earlier, Apass, about brand confusion. You don't know what the hell you're supposed to think. You don't know what you're supposed to believe in or what the tone. You're just supposed to check your brain at the door and go with it. I guess that's the only thing you can do.
Right.
Like mindless entertainment.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was 3 other things too that I had an issue with the movie. So it was my understanding, because I saw news reports before this movie came out that said that there were no metahumans in the Bruce Wayne Michael Keaton universe. I read some of that somewhere, and so when he was in the other Barry Allen's apartment with the roommates, he said, okay, there's no Wonder Woman, there's no Cyborg. He said there's no Aquaman, there's no Superman, there's a Batman. So obviously there's no metahumans in this universe. Now, where I'm confused is that my understanding, you could correct me if I'm wrong, Uma Thurman played Poison Ivy in that Batman series years ago. And isn't Poison Ivy considered a metahuman?
I would say so.
Right. I would.
I mean, because Bane was in it too, and he used that venom.
Right.
I would have to agree. I think that kind of that kind of adds a whole. But however, the multiverse is trying to show us that all those timelines are separate. So the Batman 89 is no longer connected to the George Clooney or the Val Kilmer. They would be considered separate timelines, I guess. That's the only way that works.
Well, the only problem I have with that is that I thought that Batman Forever and Batman and Robin were separate from like Tim Burton's universe, but they still use the same Alfred. The design of the house
they show that. Yeah. So again, it could be another multiverse. I kind of look at that as like early examples of the multiverse, because you're not. I mean, back then it definitely wasn't. Back then it was 100% supposed to be the same continuity. Right. But looking at the way it is now and what we just witnessed with George Clooney getting out of the car, I would say that we should take it now that all of those timelines are considered separate.
I think that's their excuse for sloppy writing.
I do. I agree. I agree.
Yep.
I agree. I'm not, I'm not going to disagree with that either. And it's very sloppy writing. A lot of it was very sloppy writing. It's just hard to make excuses for this movie. I went into it wanting to love it.
Yeah, and again, like my biggest issue with George Clooney was he admitted, and he was adamant about it, that he was not a good role or a good fit to play Batman. I guess he just did it for whatever. He said he doesn't see himself as Batman or Bruce Wayne, and they should have casted someone else. I mean, there's a long article about it, about a year or two after he did it, and then you see him reprise the role. So it just makes me scratch my head as to what's going on here. Like, why would he return to that position when he himself didn't see him
as a gag, as a favor to James Gunn, just a gag at the end of the movie, because Clooney didn't have any. That's the thing, he didn't have any. His cameo was the equivalent of the was essentially the equivalent to the Henry Cavill cameo at the end of Black Adam that they hinged everything on, right? Because if you listen to some people, it's Henry Cavill was in Black Adam, so therefore we were supposed to 100% support it, right? So right. Is that so? So George Clooney is you could literally take it as, okay, George Clooney is James Gunn's Batman moving forward, right?
Right. I mean, if they really wanted to have a comedy presence, then they should have brought in Ryan Reynolds and have him come in as Green Lantern there at the end.
Now Apass, I wondered why he wasn't there. I thought for sure that he was going to be in there, especially because with all of James Gunn's goofiness.
I think Ryan Reynolds knows better.
And Ryan Reynolds is also a big Snyder fan, quiet as it's kept. I mean, he was really running hard with his Snyder Cut stuff a few years ago. Remember? I think he knows better too. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong, but didn't Muschietti or somebody said Keaton Batman is not the same from Tim Burton's universe? This shit is confusing. Yeah, it's confusing. So essentially, Michael Keaton is not even the 89 Burton Batman. He's a variant of that timeline. Is that what we're supposed to think? He's not exactly that version. So then they can actually bring back they're saying that so that in case this movie made enough money for them to make a Flash sequel and say they wanted to bring Keaton back again, they could bring back the 1989 version, and he would have a yellow utility belt instead of the black one he had for this movie, maybe,
or Batman Beyond or something.
Yeah, or somehow there'd be some sort of thing in there, and we'd get a Batman Beyond reference, or maybe he would straight up be Batman Beyond at that point.
That would be great if he was.
It really would be. It would be cool. I mean, I'm really thinking about all the missed opportunities, and because this movie's not going to make enough money to generate a sequel. No way.
Oh no, it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and the other thing too that really didn't sell me on was the whole fact of, let's pull Supergirl out of her cage, and then she starts exhibiting powers, but Henry Cavill, Clark Kent, he had to live on Earth for a long time before he developed his powers. And then even General Zod and his army, it took them a while to adapt to the atmosphere. But then she pops out right of her cage and she's ready to fight a day later and ready to go, like even beating up the guys in Russia. So that was a hard sell for me to even believe that. Now, even after they brought her back to the Batcave, maybe if they said, okay, well, it looks like this Kryptonian, this girl, she absorbs the sunlight, so let's put a suit or something on her so she can absorb the sun a lot faster so she can go to battle, would have been a little bit more believable than we just took her out of the cage and now all of a sudden she's at full strength and ready to go.
Probably just some stuff we didn't see because, again, there's a 4-hour cut out there, and Sasha Calle has gone on record saying that a lot of the stuff that was cut out was brutal. and that it was R-rated material. And King George says, should have been 89 in The Flash. And one nitpick I had was the Batmobile was never used. Yeah, that was pretty bizarre. That was pretty bizarre for them to not make use of that Batmobile, to just have it there, to not have at least one scene where maybe he would have used that Batmobile if he would have been at the end instead of Clooney. Maybe he would have had that Batmobile. He would have pulled up in that, and that could have been the gag. He pulls up and gets out of that Batmobile. That might have been something they could have did. I don't know. It's so... We know that Keaton
so much they could have done.
More stuff too, and you know what? Yeah. To be fair, she's not human; she's Kryptonian. Yeah, there's a lot of stuff with her though, Belle, that was cut out that we didn't get to see. And to be honest, I loved it. I just think she was severely underutilized. So
yeah.
But
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I just wish that it was. I just wish it was more fleshed out.
Yeah, I just think too, like just even little small stuff, like while Barry Allen, the two Barrys were walking through Wayne Manor, I would have liked to see like pictures of Bruce Wayne, like if he was with Selena Kyle at one point, what happened to Alfred, just like small stuff that wouldn't have required additional screen time, just photographs, what he has been through. Maybe some recent articles, maybe some other memorabilia while fighting crime, from that time frame that we've seen him last. Those just would have been like nice little tidbits from a set decoration standpoint, just to kind of bring us up to speed as to what type of life he's been living since the last time we saw him.
Yeah. Well, what I kind of want to do now is was there anything, Apass, that you wanted to bring up? Because I was about to wrap this up. We kind of want to tie a little bow around this and kind of conclude the stream.
Well, I mean, ultimately, I know it may seem like this was us being negative about the movie, but we did enjoy it. There were definitely some pros to it, and it just could have been way more than it was. Like, it could have been way more epic, and it just wasn't, at least for me.
Yeah, the potential outweighed what we actually got. And I just feel like, and I don't think it's wrong as a DC fan to expect more from a movie that was like 10 years in the making. I think we should have gotten better. And Keo, anything that you would like to add there?
No, that was it. Thank you for inviting me. You guys have had a really good chat here. Apass, very nice to meet you. I'm just glad we were able to hash out. Oh, thank you. Hash out a lot of stuff so people can understand why we don't like it, why it could have been a 10, why it could have been better, and just all these little points. And, we're not here to be fanboys or fangirls about it. We're just pointing out obvious things that could have been added that wouldn't have required any more time. But, like I said, I cut it down from a 7 to a 6 when I saw the true ending, that there are 3 different variants and they didn't use it. It was like, oh, so it had potential. I'm not just to myself. I'm not just thinking this to myself that the movie missed some things. Like, they purposely omitted it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So on that note, I hope that people have come away feeling good. If you like this movie, more power to you. If you think it's the greatest movie since The Dark Knight, I'm happy for you. I didn't. I enjoyed it, but I just expected more. I give it a 6 out of 10. Apass, what do you give it?
Yeah, about a 6.
Okay, and Keo, you said a 6, okay?
Yeah.
All right. Well, that's it, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for being here on tonight's episode of Apass and ZodWriter, or ZodWriter and Apass, with special guest Keo Dykin. We will be back next time. We probably are going to do something in the near future, probably within the next couple of weeks, because we do have other topics and other things we're going to be bringing to you guys. So once again, expect big things. Have a great night, and as always, sell ZSJL to Netflix, sell Snyderverse to Netflix. Good night, everybody.
Night.
Night.